Good afternoon. It is Monday, February 5th, 2024. This is a special budget meeting of the Commissioners of Rehoboth Beach. We're live at City Hall, Commissioners Room, second floor. This is budget meeting number 2. I want to call this meeting to order at exactly 2:00 p.m. We'll do a roll call. Actually, we'll have the secretary indicate that all the commissioners are here, plus the mayor, but for Commissioner Don Preston, who's not able to attend today. I would also like to thank all the staff that's here to help support this budget meeting today. I want to thank everybody that's here in person. We see a lot from the different agencies. Appreciate you being here to address the commissioners. And also want to thank those that are watching virtually. I want to remind everybody that support documents, those are documents that support our agenda items, are embedded in the agenda when they're received at the appropriate time before the meeting. So if you go to www.cityofrehoboth.com and search for the portal button on the right side, lime green, then you'll look for the calendar and bring up the meeting date, and you'll find all the neat documents that we look at up here. You'll be able to access them yourself. With that, there is no correspondence that has been identified, correct? And with that, we're going to go to old business. First bit of old business is presentations by and discussions with agencies seeking city contributions in the fiscal year 2025 annual budget. Let me explain. This was on the budget meeting number 1, where the 4 agencies were given their opportunity to come and make their presentations. The Historical Society, by example, was ill and did not have a representative there. So we put the 4 groups back on the agenda. All 4 groups may not make a presentation today. For instance, I'm not sure the fire department will be here today because I believe they think they have a completed application from budget meeting number 1. But some of the other agencies, if they found any deficiencies or want to present something additional to us, this gives them the opportunity to do so. With that, we'll turn it over to Evan Miller, our Interim City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, Mayor, Commissioners, and members of the public. I believe the first item of business on the agenda is to receive presentations and discussions with agencies seeking city contributions in the FY2025 Annual Budget. First, we will start with the Historical Society and Museum, and I believe they have a presentation, and Heidi is with us today.
Could I ask a question, Mayor?
Yes. Yes.
City Manager, so the 4 entities that are on the agenda here in our last meeting, they were required to send in documentation, strategic plans, other supplemental information based on the grant application by December 1st. Did all 4 do that?
Yeah, so the only thing that was outstanding was the public library was required to submit their strategic plan, which I distributed to the commissioners after the last budget meeting. And then
So that was late by 2 months about, okay. And then all the other 3 have,
yes.
they put in a strategic plan?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. With that, if
Wait
you
a
would-
minute, wait a minute. Evan, I thought I asked this question over and over again. We had a strategic plan from the Historical Society the last time we met. My notes indicate no.
Mine do too. Mine indicate no as well.
Okay, then I might have misspoken. I apologize.
That's okay, I just wondered
Yeah,
if,
sure.
I always wonder, what did I miss? Did I miss an email? Did I miss something?
So I guess, so my question is and I guess for my commissioner brethren up here is, it's pretty clear in the grant application that all applications must reach the City of Rehoboth Beach by the stated deadline with the full complement of documents. They needed to be in December 1st, 2023 at 11:59. And as far as I'm concerned, if you missed it and you didn't send everything in, I don't need to hear from the other group until 2025 or another time they want to look for funds.
And I'm a little more forgiving this first year. I think this first year can demonstrate that we might have that philosophy in the future, but again, I'm more tolerant for this very first year of the new application. Anybody else?
I am very aligned with Commissioner Bennett's thinking that this was not a surprise to anyone nor their boards. It is not my responsibility to do anything more than periodically, possibly 4 or 5 times during the year, to remind not only the committee, the commissioner liaisons, but oftentimes there were representatives from the groups in the room talking about this deadline and how serious we were about it. My real problem with this is, what does that telegraph to the organizations that did get their work in on time and they took us seriously? I think, for me, that is a great consideration of not being taken seriously as a city who is charged with allocating taxpayer funds. So I think we need to think about, if we're not going to live by deadlines, don't have a deadline at all. So I don't know if there are other commissioners who feel strongly one way or the other. There's 3 of us that have weighed in. Anybody?
Who's the third?
Me, you, Tim.
Oh.
That's 3. Let me help you, Stan. I'm here to help.
I wasn't on, I didn't agree with you. Okay.
I would only say that I think it's worthwhile beings. They're here. Let's hear their presentation. They may have some explanation involved. So I just assume.
But if a majority is going to reject offering them any money, then why waste time?
Oh, I don't think we've even gotten to that part yet. Are they 2 different things, or are they one and the same? Commissioner Bennett?
I think they're 2 different things, but I'm of the opinion, if you didn't get the assignment done in time, and we're 2 months, you know, I mean, it's not like it came in a week later. So if we're going to adhere to a guideline, fine. If we're not, then I'll go along with the group, but I don't know why we have guidelines if we're not going to adhere to them.
And I truly do not understand what prevents a board member, a board president, once the commissioner had talked about all this the first time, to take 2 minutes, if that, to write an email that explained the situation? What prevented that? It's rhetorical.
I don't disagree with the comments of meeting the deadlines. But even so, whether deadlines met or not, I know it seems unfair to the ones that did get their homework in on time. But there is still no guarantee of any of these funds coming forward. I prepared and passed out here with us just a recap of requests from FY21 all the way through 25. And just as a recap, and I don't know if it's, we can show it up later, but request at this time of the 4 organizations is $395,000, which is an increase of $80,000 from last year, all total, the 4 combined. So again, we are faced with some expense increases for staff, maintenance of staff, for keeping competitive in staff. So again, this is, in my mind, we are not approving or disapproving this at the moment. It's part of the equation, and you know, it is not a piggy bank, and I don't necessarily think that, you know, all of these will be approved as requested. But I do agree that if you don't get your homework in on time, there should be some type of penalty.
So you want to go through with the presentation today? I'm not understanding. Are you a yes, a no, or I don't know?
I would think since, well, yeah, I would say go forward with the presentation.
I agree. I understand the frustrations of you and Commissioner Bennett, but I think, like the mayor, I'm a little bit more forgiving, not making excuses for anyone, but there's been changes to the membership of some of the board of directors. There's been staff changes. And none of that is an excuse, but I think I'm a little bit more forgiving, and they're here, and I'd like to hear from them.
Well, and Heidi, I feel very bad for you, that you are brand new. All of this discussion that I'm referring to took place over the summer, the spring, the summer, the fall, well before you were on anybody's radar. This is not your fault. It is not to be taken personally. It is very difficult to understand when strategic plans were asked for by the mayor of our city and supported by all of us and reminded by me over and over and over again to be ignored. That should telegraph something to each organization that didn't do what we asked. So I don't want you to feel that you're being beat up, because that is not the intention. The intention is the process being taken seriously, and what's the philosophy about taxpayer funds?
So unless there's any objections, we'd like Heidi to give her presentation, and then we can ask questions or whatever, and discuss the disposition of these and other contribution requests at a later date.
Mayor, I'm glad you mentioned questions, because once again, I'm going to come back to Heidi. If we have questions, that not only may she not be aware of the answers nor accountable for the answers. Who's here with you, Heidi, for institutional knowledge?
Oh, we have quite a few representatives here from the museum today. We have most of our staff. We have Marge LaFawn, our programs manager, our education specialist, Mariella Trosco. We have our collections manager, Michelle Wilt. We have our board treasurer, Jerry Beaulieu. We have board members here, Lynn Wilson and Jerry Capone, and I think that's everybody representing the museum today.
That's great, and thank everybody for coming.
Thank
So
you.
would your board members be able to answer questions if you feel it's out of your scope?
Perhaps, and if not, I could always write down the questions and get back to you ASAP.
No, it will be too late for that, but thank you. You've got reinforcements, so press on.
Okay. Well, good afternoon. I'd like to begin by saying how thankful the Rehoboth Beach Museum is for the city's ongoing stewardship and support both in the past and into the future, and for this opportunity to present on a late date since I had the flu on January 19th. Thank you also for the opportunity to incorporate your comments and advice into our proposal. As you know, I'm still new to the director position, having started in November, part-time, and January full-time. And I'm learning as I go about the city's wishes and requirements for the museum. Plans are in place to begin strategic planning next month. I'll explain more about this later in my presentation. And already I've been negotiating the exhibit of Paul Lovett's diorama with our board of directors. I see Mr. and Mrs. Lovett here today. Thank you. After our board meeting last Monday, we have plans to have an MOU in place for the display of the diorama. That MOU will be ready in time for our next March board meeting when, among other things, we will begin strategic planning with board excellence training from DANA, or with DANA rather, the Delaware Alliance for Nonprofit Advancement. And we will begin posting our board meeting schedule on our website moving forward in order to allow people from the public to register to attend. Additionally, we are exploring a historical water taxi tour based on the city's advice on museum partnerships that will help the city and the museum. Oh, How do I get my,
Kevin, can you get
my
her
presentation?
presentation back up
Thank you.
there?
I got it.
Oh,
There.
there we go.
Okay. Okay. Graced by the iconic Dolly's Saltwater Taffy sign, the museum, as you know, is located at 511 Rehoboth Avenue and is housed in the historic City Ice House, where it overlooks the Rehoboth Lewis Canal, greeting visitors crossing the bridge as they enter the heart of the city. Before diving into our grant request, I wanted to start with a few words about the importance of our historical society and museum. As the city's primary cultural institution, the museum helps its community and visitors articulate the identity of who we are, were, and might be. According to Jeffrey Smith, the author of The Museum Effect, museums and cultural institutions provide opportunities for people to understand and celebrate who they are, were, and might be. Cultural institutions inspire personal reflections and help visitors better themselves in that they leave having contemplated what is noble, excellent, or exemplary about the society in which they live. Local museums such as the Rehoboth Beach Museum provide a connection into the history of our specific location and help us honor our communal cultures, customs, heritage, and legacy. I get the feeling from the amount of publicity we are receiving that people are excited about the new things going on at the museum. There have been several articles in the Cape Gazette and other local newspapers about my hire and the annual members event we hosted in November, our visit with Senator Huxtable and Representative Schwarzkopf. We had them tour the museum and discussed our grant and aid request to the state with them that day. The 2024 Delaware Beach Book is publishing an article about us called Signs of the Times, about the Rehoboth Beach signs in our collection. Coast Life TV has had me on twice now. First about my new hire, and then the other day they asked me back, and I brought some artifacts, and we did a show and tell, and it was a lot of fun. And I'm hoping to become a regular guest on that show. Hard to get it like centered. Okay. This year, the Historical Society is requesting a grant in the amount of $60,000. In addition to the $30,000 the city granted us last year, which is critical for our operations, we are asking for an additional $30,000 to cover our part-time administrator's annual pay, equaling $17,000, and $13,000 to help develop a new blockbuster exhibit titled Beach Culture and Community, The Shifting Sand Dunes of Rehoboth Beach. This exhibit, which I'll tell you a little more about later in this talk, will focus on community building and raising awareness about the ecological history of one of Rehoboth's most precious natural resources, its sand dunes. Stepping back to break down the city's previous support, I showed on the screen, the city rents or leases the building to us for a nominal fee and provides electricity and pest control, insurance, contracted services such as cleaning, elevator, HVAC, and the security and fire alarm are covered in the grant that we have received previously. General small repairs, including electrical and a roof leak that we had last year and minor flooding, were covered with that grant. And general operating expenses, including part of the director's salary, going towards physical plant management and fundraising for capital expenses. So where we are and where we want to be. We're hoping to grow our budget in the years ahead to allow us to do more excellent exhibits and programming for our guests, the city, and community. And we would like to be able to support those programs with increased staffing. That growth requires additional funding. And on the screen, you see our annual operating budget for the years of 2022, 23, and 24. You'll see in 2022, we had a deficit, which became a deficit in the net because of the Dolly's sign that we brought to the museum that year, and also HVAC work we had to have done. That's listed on the screen. In 2023, we had a net positive, and 2024 at the bottom of the screen is a projection at this time. We're still developing our 2024 budget, but our treasurer's projection at this time is a net deficit of $6,000 because he's presumed only that we might not get all the award money that we've asked for from the city and the state. With the grant from Rehoboth Beach, we would have a net positive. In addition to our requests to the city, we have identified areas for potential growth, which I've asked our board of directors to help us with. So, fundraising, moving forward. So the areas for growth I've noted in caps as growth area. And I'm looking for help through the board of directors with grant requests. In addition to the city of Rehoboth, we have applied to grant and aid through the state, Delaware Humanities, and Delaware Arts. We are instituting 100% board participation in our annual fund drive, looking to grow both individual and corporate donors, and add another fundraiser. I'm hoping to do that with the company that I used to work for before I came to Rehoboth Beach Museum, Horizon Philanthropic Services in Lewis. They do an excellent job. Also, growing the foundation applications that we submit to include hopefully Longwood and Crystal Trust. And at the very bottom, just continuing to work on to improve the amounts we bring in from the beach ball and our membership and semi-annual appeals. With more funding and more exciting programs and exhibits attracting new and returning visitors, we expect to see considerable growth in our membership, donations, and visitors. On the screen, you see the list of events and programs and exhibits we're putting together for 2024. On the 22nd, I'll tell you a little bit more about this later. We're having great interest in our Black History Month event that's coming up called Those Who Led the Way. In March, we also have an exhibit opening on our staff's favorite things. We're having a docent training program in March, and a big exhibit opening in the summer about men and their amusements, about the amusement parks and amusements in Rehoboth Beach. We're having an ice cream social at the Anna Hazard House in May, working on a Gay Pride Month event with Murray Archibald from Camp Rehoboth. We have our annual needlework exhibit in September, and we're going to introduce a traditional craft artisan event in October. The former director, Nancy Alexander, is coming back and working on an exhibit with our collections specialist about the Horn family, which will open in October. And then in November, we have our annual Delaware Beach Life Photography exhibit. And we are, as you know, negotiating an MOU within the board and with the president of the Rehoboth Beach Historical Society and with the city for the display of Paul Lovett's diorama, which will also involve programming such as his lectures and gallery tours. And if I have my preference, I would suggest that we do an exhibit between the Sea Witch Festival and the Christmas Parade, at least, which would bring a lot of people in on those events to the museum and would really be an ideal time for the museum. So as you can see, we are growing the annual schedule in 2024. Museum guests return for new exhibits and programs. Having an ongoing changing schedule will bring in many new visitors as well as returning guests. We are also planning to update the downstairs permanent installation by adding interactive touch screens to the subjects represented in that space. And I'm also planning to raise money to replace the downstairs display cases with custom vitrines into which we can build new and rotating focal exhibits. Moving into 2025 and beyond, we hope to have new rotating exhibits open each February, May, and September. These exhibits will feature new content and will run roughly 3 to 5 months, in some cases a year. Each exhibit will be accompanied by events, programs, and publicity. And on the screen right now, you can see the 3 big exhibits that we're planning for 2025. We'll start in February with the Malloy Cabins, with Black History Month again, and then moving on into May, talking about Heidi Lowe's Rehoboth Beach inspiration in her art jewelry work, and then also developing a gay pride exhibit for June through September, and then scheduling all the way out into 2026. The only known major exhibit at this point is the one that I'm asking for city funds to help with, the Beach Culture and Community exhibit, The Shifting Sand Dunes of Rehoboth Beach. So, where's that? We know the city's funding requires mandatory strategic planning. In response to that, we're beginning an extensive strategic planning undertaking next month in order to create a mutually agreed upon vision of where the museum is going and what we want to achieve in order to meet the needs of our audiences and community. Starting at our March board meeting, we will begin board excellence training. We will be working with Dana's Tony Ferlenda to develop and implement our strategic plan. One of Dana's partners is Discover Bank. Discover has earmarked funds specifically for strategic planning consulting offered to Sussex and Kent County nonprofits. That money, somewhere in the range of $15,000 to $20,000, is being extended to us at the discretion of Dana. We're fortunate they're willing to invest it in us because that level of strategic planning and the level we need is both time-consuming and very expensive. Also very important is that they're going to help us implement the strategic plan after it's completed. And in my personal experience, that's where things often fall apart, is you may have a whole plan, but getting it implemented is when you really need help. Our funding request for support of our part-time administrators' annual pay will help the museum retain its amazingly qualified staff and pay them better moving forward. Any institution is only as good as the people it has running things. The Rehoboth Beach Museum is blessed, as you must know, to have wonderful staff who are here today. Each person is well qualified and performs the duties of their position above and beyond expectations. And beyond that, the staff complements one another and works together seamlessly as a team. Each person brings expertise to every public offering, ensuring that the museum's output is professionally and exceptionally well done. As you know, Marge LaFond, who's here today, she needs no introduction, having been the director of the Rehoboth Public Library. Sharon Wagner isn't here with us today, but she's the newest member of our staff. She's our administrative specialist, and she has 35 years of experience in marketing, customer relationship, and sales management. Michelle Wilt, who is here today, enjoyed a 34-year-long career in the Department of Defense. One of her 2 master's degrees is in administrative science and information technology, which informs the collections work she does for us at the museum. Mariella Trosco, who's here today, is our educator, who is sadly leaving us. She's seen here on the far left at an amazing program she just designed for homeschool families, which was held at the museum on Thursday, January 28th. The entire staff and 2 additional volunteers helped make this event run beautifully. We're currently trying to fill Mariella's position, which is going to be very difficult because she came to us with experience as the former director of education at the Hershey Story Museum, where she served 20,000 to 30,000 students annually. While we'll never be able to replace Mariella, we hope to find a new educator soon. A press release about this homeschool event was recently issued, and so you should be able to see it in the paper sometime soon. As board president David Mann made me aware, our staff has been working at this high level even though they have been being paid less than Royal Farms employees make across the street. Working with Treasurer Jerry Beaulieu, we were happy to offer the staff a small increase to their hourly pay and a Christmas bonus this year to show our appreciation. I hope the city will support the Historical Society's request for additional funds to cover our part-time administrator's salary so we may make our employees not only feel appreciated, but also so we may retain the excellent staff that we currently have. Another part of our grant request is for funds in support of the Beach Culture and Community exhibit subtitled The Shifting Sand Dunes of Rehoboth Beach. Oops. This crowdsourced exhibit is about community building and raising awareness about the ecological history of one of our city's most precious natural resources, its sand dunes. The money we have requested will pay curator Jennifer Lindsay an honorarium in the amount of $7,000 for 2 years of work. And the additional exhibit funds we have requested include $6,000 for development costs and materials. We're also seeking funds in support of this project from other sources, including Delaware Humanities and Delaware Arts. This new exhibit will increase museum attendance, involve partnerships with the city, the state, and throughout the region, and raise awareness about Rehoboth Beach's sand dune ecology and preservation. Because it will take 1 year to develop and 1 year to create, it will be on display for a full year and will include many events, workshops, and programs. I'm very excited to have the opportunity to work on this exhibit with my former student, Jennifer Lindsay, who's seen on the screen. She did an amazing exhibit at the Smithsonian's Natural History Museum, which I'm using as the model for our show. The show she did at the Smithsonian was called The Hyperbolic Crochet Coral Reef, and it brought together science, art, and community in such an amazing way that I really think it would be impactful in our town. The exhibit we're planning for Rehoboth will be developed in consultation and partnership with area experts, including the city and the state, all of whom are acutely aware of the importance of the sand dunes for our cities and states' environmental health. And it will be crowdsourced, meaning it will be made by people in the community who will be trained in the processes needed to fabricate the project. Crowdsourcing is a low-tech approach, but it is a new approach to exhibit making in the way that it engages formally passive audiences into active creators. These types of projects are real community builders. And before I go, I'd like to invite you to join us for our upcoming Black History Month event titled Those Who Led the Way, honoring 3 of our community's most beloved educators, who you can see on the screen, who some of you may have had as teachers, or your children may have had them as teachers. We have Reverend Janet Mull Martin, Representative Stell Parker Selby, and Rehoboth Beach's own Ms. Wayne Paskins. We're going to have a roundtable event where these women will talk about their careers as educators in the Cape District. They'll also discuss what it was like growing up during segregation and the important civic work that they've gone on to do after their Cape careers. And if you'd like to join us, I would advise you to register soon. You can register on our website. We haven't even issued our press release yet, and we already have about 60 people signed up in a room that I think fits 70 tops. We're planning to live stream the event because we don't think we'll be able to accommodate everybody that would like to come. But if any of you would like to come, please let me know and we'll make space for you. So upon my hire, I was tasked with by the museum's board of directors with the following goals: increasing visibility and community engagement, increasing visitors, funding sponsorships, and instituting a planned giving program, adding new exhibits, programs, events, and increasing the promotion of those things, and implementing strategic planning. I hope you can see my early efforts and plans to accomplish these goals. The city's continued and hopefully increased support and ongoing advice will help us get there. The Rehoboth Beach Historical Society thanks you for your support of our grant application. Please let me know if you have any questions I may not have answered or anticipated, and thank you for your consideration today.
Thank you, Heidi.
Sure.
Any questions among the commissioners?
One quick question, if I may. Treasurer, are you on a calendar or fiscal year for your budget? Thank you.
Funky?
A little bit more information, if you will, about the proposed strategic plan. When might that process begin, and how do you foresee that will spread out over the year or whatever?
Well, when I got in touch with Dana, they told me that the Discover funds get distributed, the funds that they'll use to pay for our strategic planning get distributed in May, but they issue those funds at their own discretion. So they told me that we could start in March with the board excellence training. And I've already met with Tony Ferlenda who's going to be our consultant. He's the consultant for Sussex County. The level of strategic planning that we're planning to undertake will include polling the community and the city. It's going to be quite extensive, so I believe it will take about a year to undertake the whole process. And then in addition, we are really fortunate that they'll be able to help us implement the plan that we arrive at the end of the process. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. The only other thing, I don't know if you can answer this or not, but in terms of how you were, and you may not know this, but how the plan will be evaluated, or if you have any information about that.
I'm not quite sure how it will be evaluated at this point, but I would like to know that too. And I'd like to know, what role the city would like to have in that process of evaluation so that,
Okay.
we can be sure that you're satisfied with what we're doing.
Well, it'll be something that'll be brought along over the
Right.
course of the year. Okay.
Heidi,
Yes.
could you talk a little bit about the application that was sent in to the city? Is that something you're familiar with?
I wrote it. So
Oh, good. So could you tell me how your board interacted with that submission?
So, Commissioner Sharp, you know that I was hired part-time on November 8th, and then I became full-time January 1st. So that month was somewhat of a scramble trying to get your application in and an application in for grant and aid, which was also due on December 1st. We did have a board meeting in November, but I don't think that we discussed, I think I had already, I can't remember if I had already, no, I didn't. I got an extension from you all so I could submit our application December 4th. So the interaction that I had with the board was with Jerry, the treasurer, and David Mann, the president.
And it sounds like, if I'm following you correctly, that there is an intention to change that with the upcoming strategic plan.
Oh, yes.
Okay. One of the things that I keep seeing, not only in the grant application, but I think you just mentioned it today in some of your words about going for considerable growth. And what I'm trying to figure out is, do you have benchmarks where you would be able to say, could you put a percentage on, are you trying to grow your membership, for example, by what metrics? You don't have to answer that today. I didn't see any metrics in the application, and that will be very important, I think, going forward. So it just goes to, I'm thinking ahead, this time next year, if you're still interested in a grant proposal for the city, it might be helpful for us to be able to determine, well, what percentage of XYZ are you going for?
Right, I agree. And we do have numbers, but we haven't set benchmarks at this point. I know from my hire that we want an increase in those things, but I think strategic planning will reveal what is doable and what is advisable and what would be recommended.
So I'm guessing from your answer, those numbers exist somewhere, your visitor
Oh, yes.
amounts and all of that. So you've got a baseline to
Yes.
take into consideration.
I didn't talk about them, but I did have them in the presentation. I could go back and show you.
No.
Yeah.
Let's go forward, not back.
Right.
because those were some of the questions that I was asking last time, that the answers to the grant proposal were very squishy, with words like considerable growth or increase this. And I've seen others come in with very specific, this is where we are, this is where we're trying to go, et cetera. So 2 other things. When you talk about registering for your board meetings,
Right.
did I understand that correctly?
Well, when I was sick, I watched the January 19th meeting where the other organizations had their opportunity to present their grant proposals and applications. And I think that you had discussed that point during that meeting, if I'm remembering correctly, that there was a question about whether or not our board meetings are public. And it was my understanding that that is the city's wish. And so moving forward, we are going to make it possible for some people to come to the board meeting by posting our board meeting dates on our website.
So if one wanted to attend the March board meeting, is that set up yet?
I'm not sure if it's set up yet, no, but we talked about it at our last staff meeting, and the plan is to get it on the website soon. The, you know, we are a small museum, and we don't actually update our website ourselves. And there's a lag time because the person that does do it is in Florida right now. So we have that intention and plan to get it up there for the March meeting so that if anybody would like to come, they can register to attend.
It's interesting to me the way you characterize that's the city's wishes. And I think maybe the board could spend some time talking about your responsibilities if indeed you're granted any city taxpaying funds. I think it's a bigger question than our wishes. I have been asking each group, are your meetings public? Are they posted? And not having a great deal of transparency, I don't think bodes well for any organization that is in any way depending on taxpayer contribution. And
No, I agree entirely. In the past, the museums that I've worked for did not have public board meetings. And the Rehoboth Beach Museum did not have public board meetings. But I agree with you that transparency is important. And so we listened, and we're going to make that possible.
Thank you. And on the, you talked a little bit about the MOU for the diorama. Did I miss, because I could have missed you saying, when you expected to finalize that?
By our board, March board meeting, I have plans to talk with the head of a committee who has been supportive of bringing the diorama to the museum. I'm actually trying to, you know, play the diplomatic role of bringing the wishes of the committee, the board president, the city, and the museum all together. And there's going to be a series of meetings. We're developing an MOU, and we'll have it done by March, and it will be something that everyone agrees on. Hopefully.
Well, I think I said to you last time on your way out, I thought you had your hands full with improvements you may want to make and things that may not be quite to the norm. And I can tell you that from the perspective of being a steward of taxpaying funds, I would hope that rises to the level that I think it should when you're trying to balance all the needs. I think it may deserve a bit more consideration if any grant money is approved this year.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Commissioner
Just
Gossett?
one follow-up question. Thank you for your presentation, and I'm glad to see that you're looking at exhibits 24 and 25 in the future. But you also mentioned that you're working on an MOU for the dioramas, and as you know, we're hosting that at the moment.
Right.
And projected, and I guess this is part of the MOU, and I don't really need an answer, but perhaps an update at the end of when that MOU is finalized. But I see that in the exhibit schedule, it's listed between Sea Witch and Christmas for 24, but I don't see it listed 25 or 26. So is that part of the MOU that you're trying to figure out?
I think that this year we want to see how things work out, and if we can agree on a schedule that makes everyone satisfied, that time slot would be perfect annually. But that is just one view of several people that are contributing to that MOU. But I think it would be perfect to have visitors in from the Sea Witch Festival and from the Christmas Parade, and all in between that with lectures and gallery tours and, you know, a reception, all of those things.
Well, fine. I mean, the city is host to it at the present time up until, I think, the end of April. So hopefully you can resolve the MOU by that time, and look forward to what happens.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Heidi, I just want to clarify. So the diorama would be available at the museum pre-Sea Witch as well during the summer?
That is what we are negotiating at the moment. The summer is a very hectic time in the museum, and we have many, many visitors during the summer months. We think that the diorama could bring in many guests during the off-season, you know, around the time of the Sea Witch Festival through Christmas, when our visitation is less.
Well, good luck with your negotiations, and that'll be interesting to hear more. And your liaison currently to this group, Mayor, is it you?
It's Bunky.
It's Bunky, thank you, I'm sorry. And I know you'll keep us informed.
Any other questions up here?
I had a quick question. Thank you for your presentation.
Thanks.
And I appreciate the forward-thinking exhibits you have planned. I'm just wondering, was there any additional focus, or do you have any additional focus on historical preservation as it relates to the city?
Well, of course, we're always very interested in historical preservation. We have a program where we award medallions to historic houses. We do the research and help people identify when their homes were built. And I've been in early discussions with Mrs. Lovett about the preservation of the Rehoboth Beach Post Office. So that's something that I would hope that the museum would be involved in as well. I have a lot of background personally in historic preservation, so I'm always very interested in preserving historic buildings in the town.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Thank you very much, Heidi. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor Mills. Thank you, commissioners.
Sure. Come up to the, now this is specific to the museum, ask, right? Yeah. Identify yourself and your
I
relationship
will.
to
My
the
name is
city.
Jerry Capone. I live at 211 Hickman Street, and I'm on the board of the museum. First of all, I want to say that I completely endorse the request for funds. The museum staff is an excellent staff. They work very hard, and they're great hosts for the museum and for the city. So I encourage you to grant the amount of money that the museum is seeking. There's been some discussion about the negotiations for an MOU. I do want to tell you that I have served on the committee that looked into whether or not the museum should support the diorama coming into the museum. I want to tell you that that the board voted to approve this committee back in July. I got on the board last January, and this has been a subject of discussion since January. And I can tell you that the highest levels of our leadership have been dead set against the diorama coming into the museum since my first encounter with this. So that's why the committee was formed in July. The committee consisted of 5 members. We spent well over 100 hours looking into this, researching it, contacting other museums that had railroad dioramas, and we found that this particular diorama, which cost over $30,000 to fabricate, we felt would be a good addition to the museum collections. But just to make sure, we suggested that the board approve a resolution that would allow the railroad to be placed there, the diorama to be placed in the museum from the April through the end of December to see whether or not it attracted the attendance we thought that it would. So our position, which we presented to the board, was that they allow the diorama to come in from April to December. A couple of days before the meeting where this was going to be considered, we got notice that Heidi wanted time to negotiate a different schedule. Now that schedule apparently is going to be, sounds like Halloween through New Year's, which is quite different than what the board is recommending. So in terms of negotiations, I got to tell you that I think there's a pretty wide spread right now. And if the past is prelude, I would say that I'm skeptical that there's going to be a resolution reached here. I'd love to come back here in a couple of months and say, guess what, we worked it out. But based upon the personalities that I've seen over the last year, I would be very skeptical of that. So why am I up here? I wanted you to know, we heard what Heidi's starting point is, which she, I guess, arrived at in talking to the president of the board. But I also wanted you to know what the committee unanimously agreed to recommend to the
Jerry, with all due respect,
yeah.
this has to do with the budget. And I'm having a hard time relating the diorama and its placement and wherever it goes to our budget talks.
Well, everybody was discussing the diorama, and there seemed to be some indication that there was a plan for the diorama. I don't think that's in place yet. So I wanted to correct that misconception. I also wanted to say, if I might, that the bylaws and the mission statement of the museum are to foster interest and knowledge of the area's historic past among residents and visitors, and to encourage recognition, preservation, or restoration of the historic structures in the city. So that is the mission of the museum. I want to thank you for giving me the opportunity to make that clear.
Thank you, Jerry. Anybody else? Again, our topic is budget request by the museum. Jay?
I'm Jay LeGree. I live at 7 Prospect Street. You asked for benchmarks and data. I would highly recommend that you have the museum director come and address the Board of Commissioners and keep you informed on how your money is being spent with each time, just like Main Street does. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Jay. Anybody else? If not, we'll move on to the second contributor or contribution request from the Rehoboth Beach Public Library. Does anybody want to present?
Mayor, will this be presenting things we haven't already heard before?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. Right where it says that, yeah. Oh, there it is.
Okay, Okay, being time conscious, I guess what we're looking for here is anything that was omitted from the last presentation,
Correct.
rather than reiterating what you've had before.
We're not, Kay Wheatley, President of the Rehoboth Beach Library Board, Lauren McCauley, who's the acting director, and James Berry, who is the treasurer. And the request last time and this time currently is for $75,000 for salary. In our application, that's what we concentrated on. During the presentation, it became obvious you wanted additional information, so I think there's 6 slides here, 6 or 7 slides, that is trying to give you that information.
All right.
And I'm going to let James handle it.
Okay.
Thank you very much for the time. I'm new to Rehoboth Beach and very new to the board, so happy to be here. So we'll show you who the staff is. With 10 staff members. In addition, we have 16 unpaid volunteers who run the Rehoboth Beach Library. We're open 6 days a week, closed on Sunday. Here's a list of the Board of Trustees. We're permitted only 5 by the Delaware State, and we have several at-large members. Below is a mission statement, which is part of it's on our website. Our vision, again, is to help shape the future by supporting and encouraging the freedom to read, learn, and discover in a very welcoming environment. And as you know, being a library in the current situation is a little testy, so. Now here are some statistics that will help us to show you why we need the money. Physical items that circulated this last fiscal year is 44,000. Electronic materials, ebooks, audiobooks, which seem to be the way that libraries are going now, more electronic rather than physical books. Total almost 73,000 is total circulated. We also have public computers that people come in and can use. We have individual use is 2,600. Wireless sessions, 12,320, which I had to ask Lauren what that was. And it's people who come in and actually use benefit to our Wi-Fi.
We have free Wi-Fi.
Free Wi-Fi. And then another very important part, I think, are the programs that we do, which we bring in people, we establish programs, and people come in and attend them. We actually plan them, which is we have a program director that does that. And part of our costs that you see later is we pay for the material that's handed out for the programs. And so that's part of our cost. The programs are free, but to the public, and they come in and actually use our material. So that's another cost that we have to cover somehow. So. Again, this slide just what we've done in the past, programs, people coming in using the library. Library usage now has changed quite a bit from the time I was a child, which was 150 years ago. And people do not come in and use books anymore. They actually use them for meeting spaces, they use computers, they actually do games. People aren't just sitting around in a library. They actually use it as a meeting place and a place for social interaction. Next. Here are our financials, which were part of our application, and I understand we did make our application in time, but we forgot to put our strategic plan in, and therefore I apologize. But we do have a plan that goes through 2026. You can see the financials here, and if you take a look, our total income last year was $583,000. Our cost was $548,000. So thankfully, the $75,000 that we have received from the city the past few years helped us to balance our budget and make profit rather than lose money. Here we go. This city support, as we said, primarily is for salaries. Without a quality staff, a library cannot function. And as a matter of fact, looking at the way we pay our salaries, I'm a little embarrassed that we don't pay to the county scale. We're looking for a new director. And one of the problems we're facing is when you're trying to get quality directors, people who have the expertise. We're a little below what the county level is. We're about $55,000 we can afford to pay, which we just went up to the county level. The recommended county level is $61,000 a year. I know one library evidently in Delaware pays almost $90,000. So we're at a competitive disadvantage if we don't have the funds to pay quality staff. We still lack a permanent director. We're in the process now of sending out invitations, and hopefully we will get some qualified candidates. We haven't received one response yet. So, again, as I said before, your $75,000, very happily, thank you very much for doing it in the past few years. It will help us to maintain salaries. If we don't have the sufficient staff, we will have to reduce services. We will also have to reduce the number of employees, and that will reduce what our mission is to serve the public of Rehoboth Beach. Has been for over 100 years. We also will have fewer opportunities to actually fill out grant applications because people will be there planning programs and handing out books. There we go.
Good. Commissioners, any questions?
I just have one clarification.
Yes, ma'am.
One for the mayor and then one for you. These were not embedded in the agenda, were they?
No, they are in the January 19th agenda. Oh,
No, they're not. They're not anywhere. So I guess what I was going to say is,
okay.
could they be embedded
Yeah,
post this meeting?
Absolutely.
Oh, absolutely, sure.
It may not be done tomorrow, but
Oh, that's
yeah,
fine,
but
that's fine. I just wanted to not lose track of that because it might be important for next year for some reason.
Absolutely.
And did I understand you correctly, because I didn't have anything to refer to except the slide, that you made a profit last year?
No, we didn't make a profit, we
Did
broke
not.
even. All I'm saying is what we did had a little bit of excess over what we actually spent, but it wasn't part of our budget. So
What was that excess?
it was 35,000.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That's all I had.
Anybody else, commissioners?
Thank you very much.
Any members of the public? No, thank you very much. Appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Kay.
Thank you.
I didn't get an indication that anybody would have any supplemental information from the fire company, but I see we have Mike Simpler here.
If you have any questions or anything, I can go up and,
Does anybody have questions?
sorry I wasn't here for the last meeting, but wifey duties.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate you coming. No
I'm
questions.
sorry, Mike, if I just have one question on this. There was a
Need to come to the microphone, though.
just a discussion about this fire protection fee that has been discussed. And does the fire department or volunteer fire office have any specific written direction on that, or really some prototype that we could look at to consider this so that?
The current prototype that we have is what we've worked out with Henlopen Acres. And
Okay.
Henlopen Acres, we currently get, we proposed $100 to them. They came back with 50 to start off with, to see how their residents and community felt about it. At that point, it was agreed upon by their board, and all the homeowners are assessed $50 towards it. Additionally, they still, when we just did our recent fund drive, we still had funds coming in from their fund drive, which was about 26% of the people still gave to the fire company with that, where within the city of Rehoboth, we average about 8 to 10% return on all our sent out. So we do have a formula we can start to work with you folks with to get it.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is I think Henlopen Acres is interesting in the fact they have no commercial at all.
Correct.
We have a large commercial contingent in the city. So if the fire department can come and present us a written program or written policy or projections or something that basically, so you have some skin in the game to be able to make this go forward. How, if it's $100 a door, or, how would that apply to commercial aspects? Doing a little research, I know some of the communities, price by the number sprinkler heads. Unfortunately, we don't require, retrofitting, what have you, so that is not an option. But I would think it would be much better for us, either not this year or next year, to have something in writing and a proposal from the fire department as to exactly how this lays out and what you expect and that type of thing. I know there's
Thinking on my feet, would it be possible to the mayor and commissioners to come up with maybe a task force with us to where we sit down together and work on something to get an idea of where we're both going and looking at this? Because again, you've got commercial properties, you've got, for example, the Atlantic Sands, you got the Star of the Sea. you've got a
Again,
lot
I
of
think you
those
have
to-
you have the relationships with them, and to be very frank with you, you can sell your need of, if the place burns down, I'm not going to be there, you're going to be there, to be able to instill in them
Right.
what this really means, okay? So I think it is, to me, it's just imperative that you bring this proposal forward, so that, again, to be very simple, you have some skin in the game to know what's going on. I know that there is a statewide study going on about this Fire Protection Act that is looking at the 3 counties to be in doing this, but I don't think that report's due till end of 25 or 26.
25, 26, and then it's up to the individual counties whether or not they want to adopt it.
So that adds another 5
Adds
years.
a whole nother
Right.
program into it.
So again, I think in the interim time, if you, the fire department, not you personally, but the fire department brings forward a written proposal that really we can work with, that you've had outreach to maybe the homeowners associations or some of the condominium associations, those type of groups, that there are different tweaks to all of this. Because again, you can sell it better than we can for the importance of that, to bring a written document to us to work on for the future.
Okay.
Commissioner, I think Evan and I have some input, and as you just stated, so I think we'd like to do something, follow up in writing with you all so that you have some guidance, but we're looking for you to help
Yep.
propose
Sounds like we can work with it.
some options for us. Thank you, Mike. Anybody, oh, you finished? You okay?
Yes, I'm finished.
I just have one clarification. On the Henlopen
Yes,
fee,
ma'am.
do you happen to know from start to finish, when it first started to be discussed to the time it's been implemented, do you know how much that was?
It was about 3 months from when we started it to when they adopted it, and it went out this year for the first time. So it's within the last year and a half. We did it in a year and a half.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Mike.
Did you have a similar, are you working on similar programs with Dewey or with North Shores? or-
We've spoke to Dewey, but Dewey, as you know, doesn't have a tax base. So it's a totally different ballgame down there with them. And we have reached out to the town manager, Zolper, and asked him, and they're willing to talk to us, but they again say they don't know how they would do it. Henlopen Acres was easy because, like you know, it's 2 blocks in the city of Rehoboth of people pretty much. So for them, it was pretty easy, quick, easy decision. North Shores, again, is another difficult one because even though, like you guys know, they have their board of governors, they're still a little different on how they operate down there like Dewey Beach.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you
Appreciate
guys
it.
for your support.
Thank you.
With that, is there anybody from Main Street that you have some addendums?
Nothing to add unless there are any questions.
No, we appreciate it. That's a reflective upon you doing a very thorough job from the beginning. Appreciate
I
it.
think there was one follow-up question from this morning that came out of the canal dock discussion. I'll ask the question, and Commissioner Sharp, if it is not satisfactory, please chime in. There was a comment made earlier today that suggested that the economic vitality work plan is more of a guideline than an actual work plan with goals that will be accomplished in the year 2024. Can you just confirm that the work plans are, they're not as wishy-washy as I may have just made it sound, as being more of a guideline than an actual tool that is used to accomplish everything that it says it's going to accomplish in any given year?
Thanks, Commissioner. These are work plans with commitments. You see deliverables in each of the work plans, and that's what we're committed to reach to our strategic plan. Okay. That said, we have to maintain some degree of flexibility and respond to things that emerge that we can't predict in November if they arise in April.
Of course,
so
of course.
while they're 95% we have to have some degree of flexibility to add, or if something becomes impractical, we can put it on the back burner.
Correct. But if something is in the work plan, it is something that you plan to deliver as stated in that plan.
And we can measure those metrics, those deliverables on each task.
Just wanted to confirm that. It was stated a little differently earlier today. Is that satisfactory?
Oh, not only was it stated a little differently, I pressed it a couple of times, and I did not get a good sense that the document that had been submitted was understood by the Main Street representative that was responding to my questions this morning. So what happened in my mind, which is a terrible place to be, but what happened in my mind was, well, if this document is just a guideline, what about all the rest of the work plans that are in the submission, Dan, that we talked about last time? Because when I talked about that line item last time, you were very clear, I thought, that you would be keeping us updated during the year of how things were going. And then this morning, it got very confusing to me.
Let me just put this morning's conversation and the work plans into a context. I think what we were looking for and what Steve was reaching for is, we can see just from this conversation this morning that there's new work added to what we had put in relevant to the canal dock in the work plan. There are new elements that are coming in. So that's the type of flexibility that we need, that we had not committed to as a deliverable in our initial work plan for economic vitality, that we now have to add. That's the type of situation that I think we're talking about. Does that make sense, Commissioner?
I hear what you're saying. And Dan, as you continue to come to meetings, or someone in your stead, I know you'll keep us up to speed on what's in the work plans and how it's going. Thank
And
you.
we'll report on the deliverables, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, Carol.
Carolyn Diefendorfer, city resident, but also assistant treasurer for Main Street. I think it's important to understand there is a separate strategic plan that has goals in it and is helping drive the details that are in the work plans. So the work plans have items in it that are going to help support or drive those strategic plan, the strategic plan that has the higher level goals in it. Okay, I don't know if that helps or hurts in your understanding.
I hear what you're saying, and I thoroughly understand what I've been told before. The disconnect was this morning.
Yeah, no, and I think
Yes.
one of the things that's important to understand is that those work plans have a lot more items in them. If we were solely focused on just the high-level goals in the strategic plan, you might have smaller work plans, but there's other things we're trying to get done that are also, somewhat supporting those goals. Is that fair? Okay.
Thank you very much for clearing that up for us.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. With that, before we move to new business, I just want to make sure that all the groups that applied for contributions, we're not making any decision today. We're not making any decision probably the next 2 meetings. It may be 33 meetings from now. So keep an eye on the agenda for when we'll come back to discuss these. And at that time, hopefully, give you our disposition of whether we're going to give contribution or not, or at least a portion of what you asked for. Thank you. With that, we're going to move on to the first item of new business, introduce and discuss draft budget for fiscal year 2025, including capital improvement program as presented by the interim city manager, to include but not limited to the following city departments as listed there. First of all, before I turn it over to Evan, I want to thank you and the staff. All the department heads contribute a lot of hours to this, to get it to this first phase here, and we appreciate it. And at some point, we're liable to talk about parking, and if so, the caution about this morning still applies. We're not talking about Deauville Beach parking or programs at all during this discussion. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Evan.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'd like to start off by introducing the city staff that's with me today for anybody who's watching. So on my far left, for the camera perspective, it'd be your far right, is Kevin Williams, Director of Public Works. Immediately to my left is Henry Matlos, our new Director of Public Works. To my right, camera's left, is Finance Director Bert Dukes. And then on the far end is Jean Lee, our Human Resource Administrator. So on behalf of the city staff, I'm pleased to be here today to present the FY2025 Annual Budget and Capital Improvement Plan. On page 2, I'll provide a brief overview of the budget, and that is the support document that's included within the agenda titled FY2025 Budget Worksheet. So on page 2, you'll see that we are presenting a annual budget with operating expenditures of $37,731,079. This is an increase of $2,038,145 over last year's, or the current fiscal year's, operating expense.
Help me find where you are. I clicked on the support document. You indicated page 2.
Take a moment to load, it's pretty large.
I think
I get this as
do you want
page-
Air Media?
Huh?
You want
I'm on
Media?
Air Media, yeah. Do you? Oh. Do- Yeah.
You need to log back in.
Yeah, first I've got to open it. Is that page 1?
It would be page 3 of the PDF, page 2 of the support document. If you scroll down 2 more pages. And at the bottom of this page. Thank you, Mayor. So you'll see the grand total expenditures at the bottom, $37,731,079. Again, this represents a $2,038,145 increase over the current FY24 budget. We are also presenting a capital budget of $9,565,000. That is actually a decrease of $815,800 over the current capital budget, FY24 capital budget. And certainly this capital budget is subject to change as we prepare to close out the current fiscal year and projects continue on and may carry over into the next fiscal year. The proposed budget as presented has a strong focus on our city staff. This includes the classification and compensation results with salaries that are not only competitive but also slightly lead the market. This incorporates roughly 17% increase in health insurance premiums, which we have discussed a few times in public meetings. Largely reflects the health insurance increase that we are seeing at the state level, and certainly we are part of that program as well. This budget incorporates 100% of city-funded employee-only health insurance premiums, which is consistent with what we are seeing in surrounding communities that we are currently competing with concerning personnel. And we've also begun to take a look at staffing levels. So asking the question, are we appropriately staffed? And with an emphasis on filling the bench, so to speak. So that includes not only filling vacant positions, but positions that we may only have one individual in that role with no backup. This proposed budget also furthers our commitment to maintaining and improving our infrastructure. So some of the things that are included in the capital improvement plan include resurfacing Rehoboth Avenue and related ADA improvements, continued improvements and upgrades to the wastewater treatment plant and water treatment facilities, and then certainly the water and wastewater line inspection program and miscellaneous improvements to that infrastructure. And one of the largest capital expenditures certainly is the Beach Patrol headquarters and restroom facility, which we saw demolition commence just this week. On page 1, so not the table of contents, but the second page of the PDF, thank you, Mayor. You will see that at the top line, we are currently presenting the budget with a deficit of $3,367,759. Included within this proposed budget, we have provided a number of courses of action that the commissioners could take to increase revenue, but also to reduce expenses. And certainly we can talk about that today. So just a number of considerations that we would like to present to the commissioners as we go through the budget. So unless there are any questions, we can start with the Public Works departments.
I just want to emphasize that this page that I'm on right there now with revenue increases and expense reduction is your product.
Yes, that's correct.
I want to emphasize that the commissioners haven't debated it yet.
That's correct, Mayor.
If I may, I just want to congratulate Evan and the staff on presenting a budget that is realistic. I think that having a deficit budget in the initial part to where we start from to really give us a clearer picture of where we are, where we need to go, and how we get there. And in this particular previous page, oh no, I guess this is the correct page. You've listed, and I'm sure this is a combination of all department heads and everybody into this. Is there any priority in this at all, or is this, how did you establish this listing?
Thank you, Commissioner. So there is no priority assigned to these items. This is just a list of any expense reductions that we've proposed as well as any revenue increases. So it has not been prioritized by the city staff.
Great. All right. Thank you very much for that clarification.
Evan, I think I've already missed something. The deficit that we're looking at right now, I think you just said a good portion of it is health insurance,
Yes.
salaries,
Correct.
and was there another big category that, I'm kind of trying to get into my head. What
Sure.
are the,
Levels, succession planning.
That's correct. So the results of the
Staffing.
classification and compensation study, the health insurance, the 100% of the employee health insurance coverage, and then as well as the additional staff.
those are the big ones. So there's the big three. Okay, thank you.
And you also mentioned the largest, I guess, Beach Patrol headquarters was the largest capital expenditure at this point.
That's correct.
That's in process.
Yep. So if there are no further questions on page 13, we'll jump right into Public Works departments. The first department is the Streets Department. That begins on page 13. So real quick, I'll just explain sort of the document that's before you. So you'll see that we have on the
Hold a second. I'm on page, at the bottom, it says page 13. Is
Yes,
that?
that's right.
Versus, it's actually page 16 in the document.
yes, page 13 of the document, not of the
And-
PDF.
And so I've got police and streets.
Starts with
Streets.
Streets and goes to the next pages.
Yes.
Streets,
Yep.
okay.
And if you could just zoom out a little bit, Mayor, I want to give an overview of the document that we're looking
Okay,
at.
wait a minute. I'm confused. What the heck am I looking at? Page 13 of 43?
16 of 43.
16 of 43. Why does this happen to me? Don't answer that.
Where do you want, where do you want me to be?
No.
Came back from Vegas, all the numbers are.
So page 16 of
If you're
43.
looking, yeah, if you're looking at the numbers at the bottom of the pages, it's page 13. But if you're looking at the PDF, page 16 of the PDF. So you have it there, Mayor. So just a summary of what we're looking at. On the far left-hand column is the object code. That's for accounting purposes. That's just the code that we use for every account. The next column over is the title of that account. So you see we have salaries, overtime. That is, the expenses that go to that account. The next column over is the 2023 actual numbers. The second column over is our 2024 budget, so our current fiscal year budget. Then the third column over is the 2024 actual. Those actual numbers are a little dated, I think approximately a month old. So there certainly have been some expenses incurred since then. And as we bring the document before you with each budget meeting, we'll continue to update those actuals.
Do you know the cutoff date on the actuals? Is that through December or?
January 17th.
Okay, thanks.
And then finally, the far right-hand column is our preliminary 2025 budget figure. So beginning on page 13, the Streets Department, I'll follow a similar program that I did last year, and I'll just touch on some of the large expense accounts, and then certainly if you have any questions, please let us know. Probably the first increase that you'll see that's pretty significant, again, is medical insurance. That is account 502-500. Again, that reflects roughly a 17% increase in the health insurance premiums. The next account that I want to touch on is 506-500. That's minor equipment and supplies, preliminary budget, $90,000. This includes concrete repairs to sidewalks, paint, tools, trash bags, trash can lids, and then miscellaneous equipment such as any carpenter supplies, first aid kits, and minor equipment such as leaf blowers. Account 511-000, that is engineering, $378,000. That is for GHD Comprehensive Stormwater Management Plan, the miscellaneous stormwater support services, on-call services for Beacon Engineering, miscellaneous plan review assistance from Beacon Engineering, miscellaneous construction drawing preparation by Beacon Engineering, the annual pavement management program, and finally the stormwater utility implementation plan. The line just under that, 511-400, is contractual services, and this includes Blue Hen, so our recycling service, and the Big Belly disposals, which are the solar-powered trash receptacles.
Those big bellies, have they proved valuable? Are they worth their while? And did we buy them or did we rent them?
So I'll answer the second question. We rent them currently. So if we continue to use them, we do have to pay for them monthly.
I'm just, Jay and I toured boardwalk towns in New Jersey, and they were trying them out, and they seemed to be successful, but we didn't have any data for it. And if I recall, you all were having trouble with them before. I was just curious whether they were worth it at this point.
So, Mayor, I would just offer that they did not meet our initial objective. We wanted to put them at street ends where we wouldn't have to take the trash truck down every day. It just didn't work out that way based upon where we could physically place them. So instead we adjusted, moved them out to like the parks where maybe we don't have to go every day, out on the bike trail so we don't have to go every day. So it didn't meet our initial objective, but they served a purpose. Personally, I would say we don't want to keep those past our initial obligation.
Which is the end of the contract is when?
This year, coming up.
All right, thank you.
The next account I'd like to touch on is 519-600. That's refuse disposal charge. So those are the fees that we incur for Delaware Solid Waste Authority and Blue Hen Organics. So that's our disposal fees for trash and yard waste.
What was that number again? I'm sorry.
That's account number 519-600 for $170,000.
Tipping fees.
Correct.
Right.
And if you back up 1 second on the contract services, when does Blue Hen expire?
I would have to double check that.
Okay.
Option years as well.
I know we recently renegotiated that.
Included in that, I know there are tipping fees, but are there also contamination fees in that, or is that?
They have not started charging that yet. I know
They have
we'd had
not.
some indication from them that they were about to, but they have not yet.
Okay.
Mayor, are you on the same line as the remarks that Evan's
No.
making?
No. 519. This is the last thing he talked about was the
Yes.
second item, number 519-600, refuse disposal charge. Those in the trade call it tipping fee, which
Just
is
give me a page number of 43, which page?
18 of 43.
Thank you.
Account 520100 is general maintenance for $20,000. This is any type of maintenance needs to the public works facilities. So in the past, this has included electrical and lighting upgrades, any maintenance to the fuel pumps that we have at the streets yard, fence repairs, and fence upkeep. The account just below that, building maintenance, 520300. This is repairs to the streets building. So this includes plumbing, electrical, or any roof repairs. Account 520600 is streets improvement. You'll see that we have $75,000 in for this year. This largely reflects the addition of the technical services division, which previously was included under the parking division. So we recently brought tech services. We pulled tech services out of parking and brought it under the streets division. So these amounts were actually removed from the parking department and moved to the streets department. And this includes roughly $50,000 for minor equipment and supplies. So this includes spare parts for the parking meters, and then additional monies for signage, painting, street painting, any miscellaneous improvements as it pertains to parking, signage, and streets.
Does that, in moving it over, does that vary from the preliminary 25, what it was in 24 under parking? We're talking the same kind of dollar?
Yes, same dollar figure.
Okay, thanks.
Account 520900 is boardwalk maintenance, $40,000. Again, this is our ongoing boardwalk repairs and work for the carpenter, or all the equipment that the carpenter needs for replacing boards on an annual basis.
So you've got a line item for capital improvement program that says boardwalk 0000 the next 5 years. And then you have this line item here. Is the difference just what you said, maintenance?
Yes.
Minor equipment, nails and screws and?
Yes, the line that we've included in the capital improvement plan, we actually included that line, I want to say 2 or 3 years ago, and that was for an eventual plan to do several sections of the boardwalk at a time. So the current program that we utilize is the boardwalk maintenance line. That is just replacing miscellaneous boards throughout the year. The capital outlay or CIP line is for if we were to go to a program where we are replacing entire sections of the boardwalk at a time. Yes.
Replacement, okay.
Finally, the auto lease account, that is 522450, 69,000. We have 6 vehicles that are currently leased through Enterprise Fleet Management, and they range from 2018s to 2021s. And then we also have,
Any questions on streets?
and we have capital outlays as well. We can do the capital outlays with each department or just wait until the end to do all capital outlays together.
Capital outlays are
CIP.
CIP,
I think I'd prefer to do them
all at the end.
all together at the end.
I agree.
On the auto leases, are those all gas-powered?
They are.
And we don't have a plan for transition to electric, or do we?
Not at this time. We do utilize an electric vehicle for trash collection on the boardwalk, but not at this time for the fleet. If there are no further questions on streets, we will move on to fleet services.
Could I ask just a general question, and this really is addressed to Jean? There's a line in here of pension, and I'm Can you kind of refresh my memory on the city pension or
So the city doesn't have a pension plan except for our police have it through the state. That line is actually for our contributions to the 401A plan that we offer our full-time employees.
that was my confusion? Thank you.
And actually, before we move on from streets, Jean, can you touch a little bit on personnel in the streets department, current staffing levels?
So last year, we budgeted for 17 full-time, 8 part-time, and 8 seasonal positions. We're budgeting for the same number of positions this year. Currently, the unfilled positions that we have is a full-time equipment operator with a CDL and 2 part-time labor positions is all that we have open right now. And we did start advertising on Friday for all our seasonal positions, and we're already getting applications for seasonal positions for streets. We are advertising for the full-time position. We are not advertising for the part-time positions because we like to try and move seasonals to part-time because it kind of keeps them around. So we kind of use that as a buffer for the end of the season each year.
How many seasonal, again, positions?
We have 8 seasonal positions.
And what's the hourly rate for part-time-ish?
So right now, we start seasonal at 16, or part-time, if you come straight in, you'd start at 16.
Okay, thank you.
Jean, do you recall around this time last year, did we have more unfilled positions or about the same?
With streets, we're pretty much stayed pretty even, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, next is fleet services on page 15.
Page 18 of 43, Tony.
And Jean, if you'd like to start with personnel for fleet services, please.
Okay, fleet services, we're budgeted for 3 positions, and we have all 3 positions filled. We don't anticipate anyone leaving or needing to fill any of those positions this year.
Those are all full-time?
Correct.
Fleet services means the mechanic shop.
Yes. Account 506-500 is minor equipment and supplies. Again, this is a relatively new department. I think we added this department last year, the year prior. So we're still filling in the gaps for some of these accounts. But account 506-500 is minor equipment and supplies for $17,000. This is where we purchase brakes, filters, equipment such as transmission jacks, grinders, as well as bulbs, fittings, grease, straps, and then any cleaning supplies. Account 511-400 is contractual services. It does show recycling as well. That's only because it's a carryover from the streets budget. But for contractual services, $25,000. This is for Aramark uniform service, tool and part cleaning, and then the vehicle lift inspections that are required to be maintained. And then also in this account, we have Mitchell One, which is our fleet management software program, which has allowed us to ditch a lot of the paperwork that we were doing and keep all of our records electronically.
Evan, that's going up about 150%. Why?
I think it was we didn't properly capture them last year, Commissioner, when we created the fleet organization. So those numbers, when we brought it over from streets last year, we probably didn't account for everything we should have.
Okay.
So this gives us a year of runtime to say, okay, here's what we need to have in there.
Thank you.
And then finally, maintenance contracts, 520-700 for $6,500. We are using this account. This account is intended for building maintenance, and we do need to create a separate account titled building maintenance. So we have approximately $5,500 in there for building maintenance, and that includes $1,000 for general maintenance. So this is roof repairs, plumbing, electrical work, and improvements to the bay garage doors that we have there. And that's all we have for fleet.
Any questions on fleet? Nope, thank you very much.
Sure. Next is comfort stations, page 16. Account 508-400 is janitorial supplies. So this is janitorial supplies for all of our restrooms, all 4 of our restrooms. And again, we utilize a state contract to purchase the janitorial supplies. Contractual services, 511-400. That is for BB&T cleaning. So this is the restroom attendants that we use at Grove Park, Rehoboth Avenue, Delaware Avenue, and Baltimore Avenue. We utilize them in the shoulder season, but also during the busy summer season. And typically we have at least 1 male, 1 female attendant. And then as the summer picks up, the time that they are present in the restroom extends, sometimes as late or as early as 1 a.m. And we add on at least an additional 2 male attendants and 3 female attendants. So a lot of this contract is subject to our needs as we see them for the public restroom facilities. So the changing season, the shoulder season, and then the times that we need attendance present at those restroom facilities.
I'd like to comment, I guess. It'd be nice if we could realize some savings based on the Beach Patrol building not being ready. But it seems to me we're still going to have to hire somebody to come and clean and take care of them. Why is this up about 60,000? Is it because we're adding extra people to it?
I think,
or are their wages going up? Are their contract going up?
It's a combination. We've also extended the hours. I think the current contract we have did not go until 1 a.m. for certain times of the day or certain days of the week. So the salaries for those individuals certainly have gone up. Their costs have gone up, but also just the additional staff that we need and time that we need them there.
Well, this is my annual wish, and that comes from the Beach and Boardwalk Committee, Jay, when I chaired it, that we found that the times the restrooms were the cleanest were the times we had one individual paired with that restroom. Now, what I learned, though, is it's very, very expensive to do that, but having them walk at the time that we considered that, which was 6 years ago, the cleaners walking between Delaware Avenue and Baltimore Avenue just didn't fit the bill. And what we found is that if we could have dedicated cleaners, then it was a deterrent to trashing the restrooms in the first place, as well as them being just as clean as can be. And we wanted to pride ourselves on clean restrooms. So I don't know that that's achievable because, again, I recognize it's very expensive, but somehow it's got to be monitored very closely. If they're going to be walking between back and forth, I think it has to be almost constantly walking back and forth.
I believe we did have dedicated folks. We do have dedicated people.
So we have 2, 4, 6. We have Rehoboth Avenue, Delaware Avenue, and eventually we're going to have Baltimore, but we're going to have a temporary place for them. So that's 2 men, a man and a woman at each of those. That's 6 people on every hour of the day, essentially.
I believe we do not have a full-time at Grove, so the 3 on the boardwalk would have somebody at each one throughout the day.
3 on the boardwalk.
Correct, and then I think the Rehoboth, if I'm not mistaken, the Rehoboth one goes out to Grove several times throughout the day, but we don't have somebody full-time.
But otherwise, there's a man at Delaware, a woman at Delaware, all the hours it's open. Is that right?
Yes, I believe that's correct, Mayor.
Hallelujah. That's great.
Wish came true.
That's
You didn't even know.
Thank you.
I think it's been that way for several years.
Certainly this past summer, maybe partially there the summer before, but.
And it's only costing us $250,000.
Yeah, it's not cheap, but that's a rationale.
If it prevents $250,000 worth of
the
destruction
visitors to
in
pay
those
for
restrooms,
that.
it's probably a good deal.
Evan, you may have mentioned this, but I forgot or didn't hear. When we're looking at the 2024 actual, how up to date is that? Is that through Through
January, middle of January.
Middle of January. Yeah. Yeah, so the mayor asked the question I guess I would have asked is, it looks like we might even come in under budget for that for this year, but you're increasing it by another 60 grand or so for the 25 budget. There's just,
Yeah, I will preface it too by saying that this was the proposal that was provided to us, so we have yet to meet with the vendor and further flush out the details of that contract.
great, thank you.
Thank y'all. Jay, go ahead.
Hey, LaGree, aren't your porta pots on contractual services? I thought they were. Maybe not.
Yeah, I don't recall off the top of my head where we bill those. Yeah.
Anything else in comfort stations?
Just one more, building maintenance, 520-300. That is largely just the plumbing and electrical repairs that are needed at the restroom facilities annually.
Is the, I don't know if this is where it falls, but the rental for space for when the Beach Patrol building is out of commission, is that here or is that somewhere?
Somewhere else.
Somewhere, okay, thank you.
It's in this.
Let us find it, right?
No, it's in the CIP.
Okay.
We'll get to that.
All right.
And as you see, a bunch of that money hadn't been spent as of the middle of January, but he does all that now. A lot of that painting and stuff he does every winter. Now's the time for that to get done.
And I don't know that this is the right place, but I've expressed before my desire for the city to pay for repairs and maintenance of the historic water fountain down there. I know Harry Caswell offered to do it, but I think it's wrong. I think we ought to be doing it. And I'd like to pay for it ourselves out of this year's budget.
Has that initial repair, Mayor, been done?
No.
No, but
That's the Women's Christian
Yeah.
Temperance Fountain, and it's just all covered in plastic down there.
I think he said earlier this month that it came in, most of the parts are here, and he thought he'd have it all finished by the end of this month. So.
This month, okay, thank you.
Again, I just think we ought to be paying for it, that's all.
I would agree that we should be paying for that.
Okay, the next account is, or department is Building and Grounds on page 16. I'll start off with Jean, if she could provide an overview of current staffing.
For building and grounds, we actually do have our building and grounds supervisor retiring before April 1st. So we are realigning this department. We also have a facilities manager in that department, and our intention is to have our facilities manager take over the department. Not hire another supervisor, but hire a full-time facilities manager assistant. That will do largely the convention center, but then also be able to help with the other facility management stuff. And then we currently have a full-time custodian position that is full, and we have 3 part-time custodian positions that are also full. So we would have 1 retirement and then replace them with an assistant facilities manager.
In account 506-500, that's minor equipment and supplies. That includes repairs, any repairs that are needed to the convention center kitchen or other equipment. It also includes winterizing the shower towers on the boardwalk, miscellaneous plumbing repairs, also any batteries for equipment, and then miscellaneous things needed for repairs such as screws, washers, cable ties, filters, wire nuts, etc.
I see a great difference between budget and actual. Is that going to catch up in the rest of the year, or is that most of that work done? Between 69 and 20,000?
I would have to go back and look at the current year budget and see if there was anything that we had planned for. Maybe it was window replacements or something like that, and see if there was anything. That number's odd, so there had to have been a large project or piece of equipment that was part of that number.
Thank you.
Janitorial supplies, account 508-400. Again, this is for janitorial supplies for the City Hall Convention Center restrooms. Obviously, we have a lot of special events, so that requires a lot of janitorial supplies. Account 511 is engineering, so that would be any on-call engineering work related to improvements at city facilities or buildings that we help to maintain. I think it's important to mention that buildings and grounds, facilities management not only incorporates City Hall, but the other buildings where we are responsible for exterior maintenance of those facilities.
And those include Main Street Historical
Main
Society.
Street, Chamber.
Chamber.
Yes. Visitor Center.
And, okay. And all the pavilions, does that fall into here?
Yes.
Okay.
Next is building maintenance, 52300. This is repairing any of the HVAC units in City Hall, the air handlers in the convention center, power washing the building as needed, any maintenance to lights and electrical outlets, generator maintenance, and then again, maintenance to other buildings that may be leased by others.
Question, back up to 51,500 travel expense. I see that's up, and I appreciate that if that's going for training or attending professional organizations. Is that what we're planning to do?
Yes. That's correct.
Good.
Account 520310 is building maintenance contracts. This is the annual inspection for the fire alarms, termite and pest control, the annual generator testing, and then
We're doing with them now, we'll pay them to come haul it for us now. We'll have an agreement with them where they could ask us to haul it to them.
Jay?
How far are we from that biosolids? From our dryer being done?
The county's dryer, I think.
No, we're doing it to squeeze out the water.
We're doing the dewatering facility. It's going to the county dryer.
For sludge, okay. So how long was?
You have a time frame
I'm sorry, I missed the first part. Time frame for
or when
we'll stop.
when the county would start picking up our biosolids?
Right now, Phase 3B is scheduled to be completed early next fall, September-ish, or October. So about that time was then we'll start hauling.
All right, thank you.
The county will start coming to pick up.
Well, I've got the momentum stopped. The North Shores, Dewey Beach, and Henlopen Acres sewer contracts, are they up soon, and do we monitor them? I want to make sure that everybody's paying their fair share.
I'd have to defer to Bert on those cost share agreements.
Well, these contracts have been in place for many years. You're going back into the 1980s when those contracts were established. There's a contract for Henlopen Acres and Dewey Beach through the county. The contract with North Shores, similar to the type that we have with the county, it's a cost-sharing agreement, and that North Shores contract is between the city and North Shores.
Yeah. Thank you.
If there are no further questions, we can move into the capital improvement plan as it pertains to the public works departments. And the CIP begins on page 38.
Okay.
So under the building and grounds department, we have replacing the asphalt roof at the convention center for $50,000, as well as replacing HVAC units in the convention center conference rooms for $15,000. And you'll see that we have a few out years as well, so we would like to start replacing those HVAC units in the conference rooms. So total for building and grounds, we have $65,000. For comfort stations, we have.
Can you explain your priority system there, 1, 2, 3? Was there?
So, Mayor, those are
you've
my
got
crazy numbers. So
over
to
2
me,
years.
zeros were must funds because we have current obligations, whether it's continuation of an ongoing contract or the like. 1 to 3 would be should funds, and then anything 4 and above could fund. It's kind of my rule, but.
Okay.
Zeros where we got ongoing obligations.
We used to have wording as a legend and, we have urgent and
Yeah, right.
needed.
I'm not sure which one
and,
was higher, a priority. It got kind of mealy, so I just went 1 through 1.
Okay, thank you.
Question for you, though. Under Convention Center audiovisual, replace heat pump, Convention Center conference room, and the replace Convention Center doors. Those were all in originally 25 and 24, but we've just pushed them.
Correct.
So are those not critical needs, or, I mean, how did we make that push?
Well, certainly I'll address the doors first, because that was one that came up a couple years ago. We actually had Salisbury doors. Somebody came in, did some tweaking to them, so we're just kind of watching them now. They seem to be functioning just fine. So we just left the line on there and just pushed it, just so we can keep an eye on it. What was the other one?
The AV and the heat pump system, Convention Center conference rooms.
So in the conference rooms, yeah, there's 4, I think, and each one has their own individual units.
Right.
They're all about 18, 19 years old now, so we just wanted to build in. Let's start replacing those before we lose them. And is it urgent? They haven't broken this week, so you just run that risk and keep pushing them. But at some point in time, we're going to need to start attacking them, doing them 1 a year.
And the AV for 130. Is that
Again, a nice to have. It was kind of low priority in that of those, it was the lowest priority. So thought we could give that up for a year.
Could you explain what the automation, the building automation in City Hall is?
Not really. So that's our facilities manager has this building automation where it becomes like a smart building. So I'm sure it saves various things. It's in the out years, so we really haven't dug into it. We just kind of put a placeholder in there so that the new public works director can get his head around it and see if it's worth getting it into the current budget or not. Yeah, it was above my ability to understand all the smart stuff. So
Is our conference suite set up with audio and visual so that we can have PowerPoint in there, so we can have groups coming in? The old days, we used to have DENREC come and we'd have a meeting with them, or FEMA would come, we'd have a meeting and use that room. But we had to have portable.
Right, so I know the one conference room as you go into the left has the capability. I think the one in the back left may have it. The one in the front right, no.
I call it the conference suite, the one with the carpeting and
Right.
the nice area.
Correct, that's the one on the left as you go in.
We have projector in
Pretty
there.
sure. But the big number there, the 100,000 that we're looking at next year would be for the main convention hall itself, right?
And I guess that's where we need to make sure we're charging enough for either the hall or for the use of the amenities separately, so.
The museum keeps coming up today, and in 2026, I'm looking at this $150,000 for a new roof, to replace the roof.
Give me a sec.
That's gonna all be on the city?
Yeah, because the contract, we have the agreement or contract with the museum that we have certain improvements that we take care of, and then they have the balance they have to take care of.
Right.
Maybe you know, but the roof is one thing. Like the HVAC is on them, I believe, because they just paid $150,000 out of their pockets for a new HVAC system.
But I believe you're right, Mayor. I believe the roof, the building structure itself would be ours.
Yeah, the building.
So it seems like it's not critical this year.
So we had a guy come out and evaluate it. Actually, David Mann had a guy come out and evaluate it because they had an instance a year and a half, 2 years ago where the outside drains weren't cleaned and weren't draining, and it backed up over, and they had some serious leak inside one of their exhibit halls. So we had somebody come out and do some spot repairs. We had actually a roofer come out this past fall and do an evaluation of it, and he thought we had 3 to 5 more years of lifespan in there. So we'd probably look at pushing it to early in that window of years that he thought it would need to be repaired.
Thank you.
Next is the comfort stations. So we have the Baltimore Avenue restroom and Beach Patrol headquarters design at $150,000. So that's continuing design work for the second phase of construction. Second line is the Baltimore Avenue Beach Patrol headquarters, the construction, construction manager, and inspection at $3.3 million. And then finally, as mentioned before, the portable restrooms facilities, the temporary facilities at roughly $100,000 in CIP for a total of $3,550,000.
And that's for the public restrooms?
Correct.
We got a decision from, I guess, is it Denmark, of location or permission to locate them?
They've given us permission to submit the application. All indications are that they will not have a problem with what we're going to request. We had it staked out, those two parcels, last week, I guess. So now that we have where the corner points are, we can do an actual layout so we get the application submitted. But we've had a couple of discussions with them 3 weeks ago, and they seem very receptive to it.
And is that 100,000 for the rental of the unit, or also digging the pipes and connections and all that kind of stuff?
It should be all of it.
All of it.
Mm-hmm. With two rental units and then underground plumbing to get to it.
Period of time we're looking at that is start to finish?
I think we said May through September, I think, in our estimate. Mm-hmm.
Are you doing any staking or marking at those two lots in front of the Pennsylvania Railroad?
Yes, that's what we just
Because I
had them
need to
surveyed
know
in.
that, because I get calls on, what are you doing there? What's going on there? What kind of, skateboard park is the first thing.
Yeah, right.
So
right.
there is something going on there, so maybe I need, okay. And that's a definitive decision. We are putting the temporary railroad restrooms in that, okay.
For the streets department, we have our portion of the resurfacing project on Rehoboth Avenue. Again, that's from 2nd Street to the boardwalk. We have,
In connection with DelDOT?
yes.
Correct.
We have our citywide paving program. This is the annual program. This time it'll be Maryland Avenue and 1st Street.
And just curious, are prices going up, or we're going to do more? Because it went from 450 to 5.
Right.
Yes, good catch, Commissioner. Yeah, we rejected a little bit because of the increase in pricing that we've seen over the last 2-3 years.
So, Kevin, I think I ask this every year. The roughly 500,000, somewhere between 475 and 500 that have been in here for years, how do we feel about that? Does it keep us treading water? Are we losing ground?
I would say we're treading water.
Treading?
Obviously, the investigation or assessment that was done 6-7 years ago that came up with that, I think the presentation at that point was this would be able to maintain the level of quality of the roads that we had at that time, not to really increase the condition over that period of time. So it's kind of to be able to maintain where we were, because obviously the older streets are getting older before we get around to resurfacing them. Yeah.
Is that what Kershaw did for us?
Yes.
And
Any plans that need to have that redone, or is that just, we're going with it?
Well, Commissioner, great. We'd love to spend more money, paving streets if that became the priority. We've kind of been holding off, seeing where streetscape went, because that would be 8 blocks right there. But at some point in time, if we don't do streetscape, we're gonna have to address it. But yeah, it's an easy one to add funds to if we feel our streets need additional little love and care.
Okay, thank you.
I just brought my computer out. It's on the drive now.
Next in the streets department is replacing the street sweeper. We were going away from the actual sweeper type and more to the vacuum type. Those work a lot better for our purposes. So that's
We had before, right?
Yes.
Because we've had trial of both of them.
yes.
Correct. And we like the vac truck
The vacuum
much better.
works
So
much better.
we're doing away with the broom, which we've had so much problems with because it's old anyway.
Yeah.
So to replace it, we'd go with the vac.
Good.
We have our ongoing storm sewer assessment and repair program at $50,000. As I had mentioned before, we do have a electric vehicle that we utilize on the boardwalk to collect trash. So we are proposing to replace that vehicle. And then the beach rake refurbishment. Again, we're always very happy with the refurbishment program that we do for the beach rakes. We think it's worthwhile, and really it comes back almost new. So again, we're proposing to refurbish one of the beach rakes that we have.
We buy a new one last year?
No, we haven't bought one since I've been here.
So we've just been refurbishing?
Right, seems to be working
So last
fine.
year, I think it was around 10 or something. Was it less money?
I think it was 30.
30?
Yeah.
On the EV truck, is it, does it need to be replaced? Because everybody talks about electric, you know, it's supposed to be lower maintenance and last longer. Is it just outserved its purpose, or?
Those have been great. I think everybody likes them on the boardwalk. We like them on the boardwalk as well. Even after we got beyond the fact that it was so small and quiet and all those things that we probably fought a little too hard against back in the day. But they just take a beating.
Right, okay.
And I don't know if you've seen some of our guys on the streets department, but they're like 350 pounds, and they're trying to squeeze in the cab of that little truck. And we have worn them out. And the other thing is, we're getting to the point where, on our first one anyway, it's almost time to do the battery replacement, and that's 3/4 of the cost of a new one. So I think our guys, and with Art's, help, Art Farringer's help, have thought it's probably better to go ahead and get new and then sell that one before the battery replacements do.
Okay, thanks.
With that,
Evan, could you just touch on the retrofitting the LED streetlights? I thought that was, you have it in the text, it says Rehoboth Avenue FY25, but it's not budgeted in FY25. And I thought that we had it in the budget for at least part of it being done in FY24.
Sure.
So Commissioner, you're right. The median lights, the big teardrops, are getting done this year. So we've had trouble getting the parts in. We ordered the parts so we could get them at government cost.
Right.
And we have a contract for BW Electric to install them. The last we have heard from our supplier is that they're going to ship toward the end of February, and then we'll do those, hopefully get them installed in March. I think we may have actually put a little in carryover, assuming that maybe we don't get them all installed by the end of the year. And then we had a follow-on phase 2, which is the sidewalk street lights along Rehoboth Avenue, and then phase 3 was going to be the boardwalk lights to get everything converted to LED. I think due to budgetary concerns that we just held off on the street light ones and deferred them for another year.
So we will update that description again. Rehoboth Avenue, the center island poles will be done in FY25. We're proposing to defer the sidewalk lights for now, and then the boardwalk would then be FY27. So we'll.
So done in FY25, but paid for in FY24 funds.
For phase 1?
Yeah.
Correct, because all the materials, minus some of the double arms, are here. They'll all be here this FY.
Right.
We may have to install part of those median lights at the beginning of next FY.
Okay, thank you.
Next, we'll move on to wastewater.
Wilmington, Baltimore Avenue Street project. Can we just talk about this?
Sure.
Got to have awful deep pockets in several years, don't we? I don't know how we're going to start planning for it. I appreciate it being in there. I don't know if we can investigate the Dover project. The state just gave them apparently $25 million to do their streetscape renovations up there. And so I don't know where they got that from, but I think it's a $50 million project overall. Did you all hear about it?
Seen that at all, Mayor? Sorry.
It was on, what was it on, WRDE?
One of the
WRC?
local.
Yeah, they
TV.
kept running it over and over again.
Yeah. And in fact, they're starting with a parking garage.
Mm-hmm. And that development downtown.
Yeah. So anyhow.
Next, we'll go into wastewater for the capital budget for FY 2025. Kevin, do you just want to run through these?
Sure. We didn't take anything out of there, right? Nothing came out of wastewater. First up, the sanitary sewer cleaning and CCTV. This year will complete. We've cleaned and videoed every sewer pipe in the city. To include this year, we're finishing up down in North Shores. So we cut that back a little bit, and now we're going to go attack where we've identified problem areas. So we reduced the money quite a bit, and we're just going to go to select areas as opposed to trying to work our way completely through the city. PLC, those are the control systems down at the wastewater, various pump stations. This one's actually, Bill's been doing one of these a year for the last several years. This year he's going to building B2 down at the plant, and he'll swap that one out. Pipe rehab, we've got $100,000 in this year. Those are for spot repairs, point repairs. As I said, we've videoed them all now, so we have a pretty good idea of the condition. We'll go back and start attacking them. What we have found that when we do our water main replacement and paving, there's typically a point repair or two that needs to be done to the sewer pipe in that area too. So we've actually the last couple of years been able to incorporate all that into one, which has saved us a little bit of money as well. Pump replacements, again, Bill does one a year, and he has a couple of them sitting in the warehouse back there, so when one breaks, he doesn't have to wait for a long period of time to have something to be able to repair it with. The Phase 3 completion, so that is the amount of work to be done above the SRF loan. As you remember that the bids came in above the remaining value in the SRF loan, so we decided to self-fund the remaining part, so that'll get finished up this coming year. Wastewater treatment plant upgrade, we've started the design on Phase 4. We started this year, and it'll continue through next year, so we have money in there for the continuation of that design. And then pump station valve replacements. You may recall last year we had put some money in the engineering budget to start taking a look at our force mains. So as we started physically doing that, basically with tabletop exercise first, but then we realized that we couldn't do that until we were able to isolate those force mains. So that's what, then we retreated a little bit, said, okay, how do we do that? And we're going to start with these valve replacements down at St. Lawrence Pump Station, which will then enable us to isolate those various force mains and then do a proper condition assessment for those. But we were afraid, the guys were afraid to actually even exercise those valves, that they were afraid that if they're open and they close them, they wouldn't be able to open them again. If they're closed and they open them, they wouldn't be able to close them again because they've just been in the ground so long. I think that's it for wastewater.
So we're just doing the capital improvement program for each of the departments that are on our agenda, right? So,
Yes.
So we'll get to the rest of them in the future meetings.
And
Okay.
certainly right now, we're focusing on the upcoming budget, so FY 2025. If there's questions about the out years as well, we can answer those questions.
Right, right.
And the next and last would be the water department.
Same.
Yeah.
Okay, first up is we've been doing this for 5 years now, 6 years now. Just more of our mass water meter replacement program in order to get everything up to be remote capable, to be able to take advantage of the FlexNet system that we're funding this year. We plan to do the water main replacement along with our paving program this year down on Maryland Avenue, the Ocean Block of Maryland, where they have still have an old 4-inch cast iron main with lead goosenecks, so we'll try to get that out of the ground this year. The Well 8 rehab, so this is just kind of a preliminary look at Well 8. As you know, we're constructing Well 6 out there now. They'll tie into Well 8, so this will be, then hopefully we'll have a great new system with the new 6, and then we'll scope out whatever rehab we're going to need on 8 if there is any. But this is the preliminary look, preliminary engineering report for any rehab needed at Well 8.
Will that make any change in our flow rate or availability at all?
It should not. That was one of the initial studies we did back when we looked at where we could put a new replacement at well 6, and this was the best place for us. So it shouldn't impact water quality or quantity throughout any of our customers.
Jumping back to the water meter replacements, do we have the software to do the remote reads in place?
We're going through that transition now. Consultant's been in, met one time with Bert's folks, our folks. They're doing the transition now so that we can get the ones that are capable, that we're able to look at them. So we'll hopefully be able to look for a billing cycle and then hope to have everything up that can be up on the automated read by the quarterly readings, which will happen early in April.
Does that still take a manual move from that data into Munis?
I think it's automatically. I mean, that's part of the consultant services when they bring this system online. Is they had the name of a type of file. So our smart guys, Max and those guys were there, and it'll get input directly into Munis, and then it should be very seamless with the billing process for that. Yeah, we're all hoping this could be great. Okay.
Are there any further questions on what we've learned today? Because at some point, are you ready to go into parking?
Yeah, I think Kevin's just going to wrap up capital, and then I'd like Bert to touch a little bit on the water wastewater revenue piece,
Okay.
and then we can go into
I've got to run
parking.
for, probably I'll be back in 10 minutes, so Patrick's going to chair till I get back. If you pass it before I get back, so be it.
Going to raise parking rates.
There you go, $5 an hour all year round.
$10 an hour.
And then I think the last thing is the filter media replacement at the Lynch plant. That's every 5 years. We have to replace the carbon in the filtration system out there. So we're doing that this year, which would be 5 years for us. It also, we had a consultant do a study last year about the new PFAS, those never-ending chemicals. We have some, we don't have a lot, but we do have some, and the carbon is the recommended treatment for that as well. So our system should handle, whatever we have with respect to PFAS. And in fact, this time, we're actually loading, right now we operate with the tanks half full, so it comes through the various tanks, and they're loaded at half full. This time, we're gonna fill them up, so they take a full load, and hopefully they'll do a better job pulling PFAS and everything else out of the water that we have. And I think that's it.
So, before the mayor gets back, because I think he wants to move us into parking, yes? This morning, I said one of the things I was going to try to do while we went through this discussion was to see if there were...
It's the mayor's.
New music.
Very pleasant.
Funland wants funding, okay?
was to see if there were any priorities that, as a result of these discussions, could be a topic for committee. Did anybody come up with something they would like to offer? I came up with a few things, but I don't know if they're valid.
Go for it.
Solar energy. I don't know if it would do anything for our costs going forward over a long period of time. Electric vehicles, I don't know, over a long period of time. Streetscape and paving streets, should we have a more aggressive stand on that? Status of stormwater utility and where we're going with that, which I think may not need a committee, maybe it just needs refresh at some point. And then Kevin, the last thing you brought up, what are the letters, the PFAS?
Polyfluoro something, PFA.
Yeah, well, I've been hearing a lot about that on the news, and I kept wondering, what is our position? What do we tell people if people call and ask, what does the city do about this, or do we do anything about it? And I didn't know if we're in a position yet to start talking about that or just have it on our radar, or is it something maybe for another time? I don't know. So the purpose of me trying to capture anything was to see if there were topics that might garner investigation in the future. Did y'all have some different things or things you'd like to think about?
I think for me, the one that stuck out was the streetscape, because of the large expenditure of it and whether that's going forward or not, or what are we doing about that? Instead of just moving it year after year after year. I mean, is that a reality? Are we going to, is that group going to reconvene?
I think there's an intention to reconvene that, but you know,
An intention or a guarantee?
I'm just going to say, you know, my feeling about words like it is our intention to do something. Is it going to be in my lifetime or whatever? So, but yes, streetscape may be something. I'm just hoping that as we go through all the different departments for each meeting, we start thinking about, does this or does it not help us set some priorities? So that as we come out of the budget meetings, I don't want to get to the end of the budget meetings and say we don't have any priorities. Mm-hmm. You know, it's all really just table stakes, the things we have to do day after day, week after week to keep our heads above water.
I think Commissioner Bennett's offer to try to coordinate the 10 top CDP items, perhaps some of those would reflect direct budget issues. I don't remember what the top 10 are.
Right.
I don't think any of us do.
I'm sorry?
I don't think any of us do.
No. But maybe those have some effect, since those have been, quote, identified already. Maybe that should add to your list.
I think it has to dovetail into this. So I'll be calling up Commissioner Bennett to see if it actually works or not. But yes, I think that's a good observation.
The other overall thing, Kevin, and I forget what Commissioner asked, the question about the paving of the streets, and you said we were just kind of keeping up with the maintenance each year, but would that be a bigger priority, do you think, if there was additional dollars that went toward that? Is it a necessary thing to do more of it, to get ahead of it, or do you like the status quo of it?
I would always appreciate a little extra money to improve our streets. I can't prioritize. I mean, we don't have any that are falling in on ourselves. We're able to maintain that level. Certainly the ones that get resurfaced, everybody on those streets loves them because they are so much quieter and smoother and nicer.
But if that 500 went to 750, does that do anything for you? Or
to me it does, because it's just, those are easy to administer. It's be in the same contract. You just say, do an extra block.
Right.
Those are very easy to accomplish. I don't have to go put together a separate bid package, go out, advertise it again. We have an ongoing program that would be very easy to implement. But along those same lines, you know, we're talking about streetscape and all. Whether we decide to do streetscape or not, we're going to have to address Wilmington Avenue and Baltimore Avenues, because they're way up on our list of to-do streets. And we've just been kind of waiting until we get a decision on how to move forward. But at some point in time, certainly when the hotels are finished and our Beach Patrol headquarters is finished, we're going to need to address those streets, because they're going to take a pounding during that construction. And they're at the top of the list now. We've just been deferring. So
They're on your to-do list for paving?
Correct.
Or because of the piping underneath is getting old? Or?
Certainly each of those has a 4-inch cast iron main on one side. So we would do what we're doing on Baltimore or on Maryland this year is making an 8-inch loop on there. For sure, we would want to do that. Any other sewer repairs would be point repairs. I mean, we know we've had some sinkholes on each of those streets that we would want to address at the time. So,
well, and I think if you're going to go into that also, to do, you know, this beautiful new building at the end of the block and a new hotel on one side and probably a new hotel on the other side, and you pave the street, the sidewalks are going to look like crap. And they're misaligned, the driveways are going to have to be realigned. I mean, it to me, it makes sense that, of course, I've been pounding this drum for a while, that that's the time to do this, that it needs doing, as you're saying, it's the top of the list. Wilmington's the same thing. I mean, the sidewalk alignment along Wilmington is miserable for walking, if not for a wheelchair. So I think it's just, it's the need is there. We just have to make the commitment to fund it. And I know that has an impact on the budget, but as I say, looking at the CIP and things, we just keep kicking things down, and it's understandable at times, but there comes a point where we just can't afford to do that. I mean, it's not we can't afford to do it in the sense of money, but it's the right thing to do.
Patrick, wouldn't some of the commitment be that we will probably provide a big portion of that, but the expectation is that we're going to go out and find how many grants we can get? I mean, because we can't afford all that.
Well, I not to get off the subject too much, but we had the last time we came in, I guess it was the plug study, the consultant said, well, there are just no grants for that. Well, you just told me Dover got a $5 million, $50 million? $25 million grant. So either we shouldn't pay that consultant or find a new one. I mean, seriously.
Well, I think it behooves us now. I mean, it's in there for what, 2028, 2029? Well, I'm sorry, wherever it is. We need to start now looking for grants. I mean,
well, we don't have anything to go out for a grant. It's like, I mean, that's engineering costs. You know, can we incorporate that into the resurfacing cost or something of that nature? But you know, that old phrase shovel ready, that's what a grant needs. And I don't think we're anywhere close to that, are we, Kevin or Evan?
So how do grants work? You can't bank a grant, so we're going to use it in 3 years, kind of a thing, I guess. There's a time limitation on it, So it does need to be shovel ready, right?
Well, at least, you know, the project of creating a grant for the engineering study, perhaps, and then you look at it on a step-by-step basis. If you get the engineering study done, then you know what you need. I mean, we're doing one-offs. This plug study really didn't do a lot. I mean, except somebody threw their hands up and said, oh my God, that's too much money. We can't do that. Let's kick it down the road. So there's got to be that commitment to say, okay, we're going to do an engineering study. We're going to design, this is perhaps the Citizen Input Committee, to say, look at this. You know, Streetscape Task Force has been on hold for a while, so maybe some new ideas to the table or some new interest to the table or something of that nature. But it's a 5-year plan. It's a 10-year plan. As I said, this, I think, the $14 million that you looked at is both Wilmington and Baltimore. What I've said earlier is if we do one block and that is the model block, and then we keep growing from there, those you know, small bites of the apple. But without engineering or a commitment from us to do that, it's going nowhere.
So just clarify, those that are doing the construction will bear no accountability for?
We've not asked them, I don't think. Have we? I mean, we've had discussions with the hotels and what have you, and
Well, we didn't tear up the street, did we?
But I don't know that we have any mechanism where we can charge them for wear and tear on the streets, excessive wear and tear on the streets. Do we?
If it's a private residence, you know, the homeowner usually is required to fix a sidewalk, I believe.
Sidewalk,
Yeah.
yeah.
And they often crush the caps on the water meter things because they're made out of plastic. And they're supposed to be billed for that, but I don't know that's always done.
Unfortunately, I don't know whether we set a precedent or not, but Streetscape, we didn't charge property owners anything, I don't think. I mean, I can't say that 100%, but I don't believe we did. It was just all incorporated into the project. And so they lucked out, if you will, by owning it the right time.
times is different.
Yeah, this is a different time, and I just have a funny feeling if I had a big construction crew at my house and I tore up the city street, I would think the city would have something to say to me about that. or if they're not saying something to me about that, I would wonder, as another taxpayer in town, why isn't the city going after that owner? Just an observation.
So you're referring to if the construction starts on the other side of the lifeguard station? Is that what you're referring to, on Baltimore Avenue?
I thought one of the things
Wear
that's
and tear
going,
on the street?
one of the things that's going to damage the streets is all of the vehicles and all of the wear and tear.
Right.
And then we ask the taxpayers to pay for all that.
I think what Kevin, if I understood him correctly, if he had his wish list, Baltimore would be done now, because you said it's in bad shape, right? And the sidewalks and the,
Well, yeah, and then after the street gets torn
gonna
up,
get
do
worse.
we do it again?
right, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Are you familiar at all with an adequate public facilities ordinance?
I am not, Commissioner.
That addresses some of these issues. That is the responsibility of the developer to provide adequate fire service, ambulance service, all of those issues that, you know, if I'm going to develop this piece of land or redevelop it, I've got to meet these thresholds. So it's something that's more effectively used statewide or county, but municipalities do use it. And it sets out the priorities and the issues of how growth is managed. I'll put it that way, is the biggest way to talk about it. But it's just an adequate public facilities ordinance.
Mayor, you wanted to move to parking?
Well,
Parking?
if you're done with all this stuff, did we want to address that? I mean, if you recall, we deferred it from the morning meeting to now.
Well, the goal for today is for us to try to understand what's in each of these areas, right? As well as what we did earlier in this meeting. So I don't have any further questions at this time. My biggest heartburn at the moment is the way we started the meeting, which is exactly what we're looking at as a deficit. But I can't solve that today or even have an intelligent reaction to it today.
Well, unfortunately, if parking is one of our ways to resolve it, then we have to act by the, February 19th meeting? Right?
Yes,
February 16th.
Well, I mean, in looking at Evan's cover sheet, which is very eye-opening to me, right now at this point, that what we've accepted so far and go forward, we got a $3.3 million deficit. So the aspects there, I mean, one suggested revenue increases parking meter rates to $3.50 an hour. And that brings us down somewhat. An increase in property taxes. I don't know, it's not detailed there, but is there an action on proposed increase of dollar amount or per hundred amount? I know it really works on the assessment value, which is going to change from Sussex County.
Well, currently, the tax rate on property is 6 cents per hundred.
Correct.
And where that, you know, I haven't computed whether that's going to be 7 cents or 8 cents, but we know that we have enough room between the 2.2 and 3 million, which is our limit.
Right.
So, you know, we'll calculate what that.
Yeah, so I guess the question is, to get to 2.9, what would be the mill increase for the tax rate per hundred?
I don't know what the pennies are going to be, but I know I'm going to get $850,000 out of it. You know, I mean, I'll back into that. It might be, well, it could be 8 or 9 cents. I haven't calculated it, but all I know is we need the revenue, and we can go up to 3 million before you have to go out to
Correct.
make a change and,
Right.
and raise that $3 million limit.
Which other communities in the area have done, that raised their tax limit. We have not.
correct. Yeah.
So what's magic about the $3.50? Is it just because that's a reasonable increase knowing what we know how big this number is, what happens if it's $4?
We're more than Dewey.
Well,
Which is fine.
what
Right.
Commissioner?
I'm not disagreeing with you.
What Commissioner Bennett keeps floating, and I hear you, is $5 an hour.
I just paid $31 an hour to go get my tooth fixed in Philadelphia. So, not that we're Philadelphia, but,
Right.
you know,
All over the place here. Could I ask, I've got two follow-up questions for Public Works, and then I think Evan wanted to go into wastewater and water revenue.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought we were going into parking.
I
And then
did
parking.
too, I apologize. Jay wanted to say something. Let's let Jay and then,
Yeah.
and then.
Before you leave, Evan, on the
50.
what is it, 850, was that just $1? Did you just go to $1 up or 50 cents up? Where'd that come from? I couldn't find it.
Sure, so the proposed property tax increase, we didn't, as Bert mentioned, we didn't really identify
Okay.
a per 100 to assess. All we really did was we looked at the city charter. We know that in the city charter, the city can only raise up to $3 million in property tax.
I got you.
We currently collect a little over 2 million, so we were trying to collect enough to get up to our limit of the 3 million, so.
Was your parking increases, did those come from everywhere? You had residential rental tax was up 16.7%. On parking, I have $1,073,333. Was that all from the increase in the per hour rate, or did you go through and raise the percentages on everywhere?
So in terms of the parking meter rates, again, an idea that was thrown out at one of the last meetings was to consider going to $3.25. After we had done the comparison, which we briefly talked about earlier this morning, we saw that other towns were up to $3.50. So we just included the $3.50 to be, again, comparable to other towns. So we've adjusted the revenue, again, projecting the $3.50 per hour for both the meter coins, the credit card, and the pay by phone. The rental tax, we just proposed from 6% to 7%, again, just as a consideration for the commissioners, and arrived at a potential revenue number.
And your sewer is up 20%, 21%. How tough would it be to figure $5 on the Memorial Tim Bennett increase in?
Don't, you had your chance.
I agree. I think that's what we need to do. Tony said 6.
2 years ago, I proposed that.
And I agreed. Go back and read the stream, listen to the stream again. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would it be a hassle to figure $5?
No, I mean, certainly if the commissioners would like, I think for the next budget meeting, we could provide some potential revenue numbers, looking at the $4 or $5 per hour. We could do both to give us some options to consider.
I think we have to.
That would fill up all the seats, so that'd be good.
Well, as Commissioner Sharp mentioned, well, do you want to finish, before we go to parking, do you want to finish the wastewater?
I have
Ed had two questions.
Yes, yeah.
the two follow-ups. One, I may have completely missed this, but I don't ever remember seeing it on here before. On the capital improvement plan for streets and refuse, starting in FY26, we've got a new public works facility, the design and then construction of. Did I completely miss that? I don't remember seeing that at all, and it's in the tune of, $2.3 million.
I think it has been, Commissioner, but it's always been in an out year, so maybe it's working its way to us.
Okay.
But there was a design for a new facility done, I think 6-7 years ago by Kircher. Again, it certainly wouldn't be at the top of the list to be done, but just kind of something we're keeping an eye on.
Okay, and that
We designed it as a facility for Public Works trucks, but also as an emergency shelter or emergency depot, if you will, to receive supplies during an emergency. And the reason they did that is so that hopefully we could get some federal grants.
Right.
And it never panned out, but
And that would be going where the garage site is now?
The current plot, yeah.
I just didn't recall it from a couple years ago. And then I just want to clarify on Public Works operating budget. I know we added an assistant public works director for this fiscal year, and that's sort of being taken away for the FY26 budget, correct? We're not keeping an extra person once this one leaves us and goes and plays golf every day. I mean, it was never intention to add another person, right? It was to find a successor.
correct.
So I just want to confirm that.
That's my understanding.
All right, thank you. Those were the only two follow-up I had for Public Works.
On the property tax, that calculates to about 8.5 cents per hundred, an increase from 6 cents.
An increase from 6 to 8.5 cents.
That would bring us up to like 2.9 or?
Well, it would be, we're looking at, yeah, almost 2.9. It's 2.89.
Because I was just looking back, the last time we increased tax from 4 cents to 6 cents was in 2019. And then prior to that, it was a 5-year stable at 4 cents. And then prior to that, it was 3 years at $1.78, but we did the reassessment at that point in time. And then before that, it was again 5 years. We went from $1.55 to $1.78. So it's just look at history. We've done an increase about every 5 years.
So are we due?
Yes.
Because the last one was 2019,
Correct.
right?
Where we went from 4 cents to 6 cents. So we're going from perhaps 6 cents to 8 cents.
8.5.
8.5. Yeah.
Well, I remember last time we raised the property tax, of course, you don't expect everybody to jump up and down all happy about it, but a lot of them are willing to shoulder the extra property tax increase if we also raise the rental tax fee or raise extra revenues from the visitors.
Which is why I was insistent on
Right.
bringing up the parking, because I don't see how we can, I'm certainly not prepared to sit up here and say, yeah, let's raise property taxes, but not consider parking or anything else.
I'd go a step further, that before we pass on a property tax increase, we should look at every single fee and every ability we have to raise revenue and get it adjusted properly. We keep talking about that, and I'm with Edward. Either I missed a meeting or we've never actually completed that task of an overall view of all fees. Have we? And I missed it? No, okay.
Evan, is there any increase in any of the mercantile licenses?
No.
None of that is in here.
I was hoping to have a fee schedule, a draft of a fee schedule prepared and available as part of the budget discussions. I'm still ongoing with that in the code company, but I hope to provide something to the commissioners very soon.
Well, I may be willing to raise parking meter fees for this season, but otherwise, it sounds to me like we've justified postponing the discussion to a future date so we could have that holistic conversation about parking and the same thing.
Mayor, I think we've already got enough facts in front of us that it would not be, it would be less than prudent for us to push it off to a holistic meeting.
Parking.
Just the
meter fee.
Just the meter fee for this 2024 season. I mean, I think we can justify, I think Lynn could really articulate exactly what we're looking at, not only next year, but in the couple of years after that. And we're doing we're front-loading this planning.
Well, what about the proposed or suggested increase in rental tax from 6 to 7%?
I'm all for it if it's not the property owners.
Bethany Beach charges 7 cents, so.
Not the what?
Bethany Beach charges 7 cents rental tax, so.
Rental tax, right?
So we would be on a par with them.
We can't, we're not able to increase the hotel accommodation tax, right? We've got that maxed down on what we can do.
Or we pay, our portion's 3%, I think, right now.
3 cents.
Well, if, just looking at Evan's figures here, if we were to increase, as suggested, the parking rate to $3.50 per hour, based on the 3 categories, it's about $1 million, a little over $1 million, and increase the rental tax from 6 to 7 is $500,000. So there's 1.5 right there. That's a little less than halfway to balance the budget.
Say that again, parking meter fee $350, and then what?
Rental tax from 6 to 7%, projected revenue of $500,000, if I'm reading that correctly. And then you combined coin revenue, credit card revenue, and park increased pay by phone parking revenue. That comes up to about $1,730,000.
One thing on the rental tax, I think you might get some feedback from your realtors saying that they've already accepted deposits and it would be difficult. Well, from my experience, I experienced this in Florida. They had a tax increase between the time that I paid my deposit and the time that I checked in. And it was maybe $20, but they just added it and said there's been an increase in the rental tax, so therefore you owe $25 or $30 more.
Like
That's what's happened in the past. I mean,
it's like triple net. If your taxes go up, you pass it right along.
Well, I think they used, the realtors, said that, we've set our computer for such and such a rate and all that. But I mean, the truth of it is it can be, you've got a little more balance that you have to collect from the person checking in. And most of the people don't seem to object too much for, small income. Going from 6 cents to 7 cents on a $3,000 or $5,000 rental is not a huge burden. It just requires a little extra math when you check the people in.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's easy enough for the real estate agents to adapt. I think what is going to be harder is the folks that use VRBO and Airbnb.
Well, that's all on the honor system, isn't it?
Of course, a lot of those people, Verbo works a lot of times with the realtors. In a lot of cases, my personal experience is the realtor gives you an option. They say, do you want to add Verbo? And as an advertising mechanism, but the activity actually comes directly through the realtor. I don't know how many people have that kind of a system, but I think it's preferable because the realtor takes care of your problem. The person might have rented through Verbo, but it goes through one of the local agents, and they charge, I pay about $500 a year to use Verbo. The attraction of that is that they're better at getting the off-season rentals than, renting directly through a particular agent. So it adds some revenue, but, so my point is that the realtors will collect that money. Now, if it's a direct deal between Verbo and the individual renting, then, I'm not sure. I mean, they're supposed to comply and collect.
Well, but isn't that the issue that we've talked about a number of times before? I think Commissioner Gossip has brought it up, Commissioner Bennett has brought it up, that are we leaving money on the table because we don't have any software that finds and eliminates? You've got rental contracts that we deserve a portion of.
Well, first of all, somebody has to have a rental license. So not if they fail to send the rental tax in, they probably don't have a rental license either. And if if you have a rental license, the city sends out an annual document saying, do you rent your property?
Right, but those are the people that are not trying to skirt the system.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm not talking about
Like
them.
100%, there's always somebody that's going to rent without a rental license, I suppose. I don't know how you enforce that, but I think percentages are, you know, pretty good in our favor.
I thought we never did get a solid answer on whether or not there is a software solution to the VRBO. Am I wrong about that?
No, there is one. Some municipalities have them. I just think we'd have to invest in
Well,
it.
maybe, Evan, you could check with town manager of Dewey, because they have that program.
We had that representative in to talk to us last budget cycle about this, and it was my understanding that our software was incapable of determining either unique addresses or something of this nature that was not, it wasn't working. So that was that one particular software that Dewey uses. I'm just trying to look back here as to who that was.
Same software?
I mean, it was the same software that Dewey put into place last year.
And I think our IT folks were involved in this as
Yes.
well. So maybe it's just refreshing our memories of whether or not it's an option or we need to stop worrying about it.
I think as we present the building and licensing budget, we can continue discussing that. And I'll certainly chat with Mary Ellen ahead of that meeting as well, and we'll come prepared.
Bert, the mayor had asked a question, and it went over my head, but as we're talking about all these different areas with fees, I don't know if it was related to water, but he had made the comment of, are we correctly charging fees to, I guess, some of our municipalities that we share with? And you said we had contracts that were done in the 80s. Did I hear you
Well,
correct?
no, we're talking about sewer.
Sewer?
Water is pretty clear because even all customers are metered on sewer, on water. But the way the city has metered sewer service, which means we take the number of gallons of water that somebody uses and multiplies it times the rate that you all establish. Currently, I think we're $14.70 per 1,000 gallons, I believe. And
Wastewater.
Wastewater.
Correct.
So, but what happens is these agreements were cost allocation agreements. So we basically go through at the end of the year when when the audit is done, we use those audited numbers that are used for operating the wastewater plant. And we allocate those costs based upon the flows. These are metered flows that go into the plant. And, you know, currently, Rehoboth uses about 43% as of the 2023 year. We use about 23% of the wastewater that is actually processed at the plant. Dewey Beach currently, with the addition of new capacities being sent, they're using about 48%. Now, Dewey Beach includes more than just the town of Dewey Beach, it's a district. And then you've got Henlopen Acres and North Shores. They use about 5%, and North Shores about 4%. Well, what happens is those flows are measured every year, and those percentages are revised every year. And we apply them toward those costs. And with the county, what's really done, we have quarterly billing. So we take the readings and we do bill the county quarterly for Henlopen Acres and North Shores. Kind of like it's almost like a tax estimate, you know, we give you 4 quarterlies, and then at the end of the year, when we complete our audit, we go ahead and settle up. So we may owe them some money, so if we do, we'll send the county a check. If not, they'll send us a check.
So is that where on here where it's the 1470 to 1779?
Yes. Well, now that's in town specifically. See,
Okay.
there is no rate set for these entities that share the cost of the plant.
Okay.
We're allocating the cost of the operation, whereas we set a metered sewer rate. The reason is you take Dewey Beach, they have no meters out there, so we don't know really what the flow is. So we just take the whole community and get those flows and apply that. In Rehoboth, we have water meters. So the idea being that if somebody uses 5,000 gallons of water a month, we'll use that 5,000 gallons as a sewer volume and apply that towards the city's rate.
Okay. No, that's okay. I just was wondering if there was a fee, just to,
So
so
in
you
the
answered the
interest
question.
of time, it's already after 5 o'clock, and we have a time-sensitive issue for February 16th on parking. Right? What are we doing with it?
So what we could do is, if you're uncomfortable making a decision just yet, we can project revenue looking at $4 per hour and $5 per hour. If there's any other numbers you want us to look at, please let us know, but otherwise we can project the revenue. We will have the budget meeting before the regular meeting on the 16th. It's just a matter of, do you want to have the discussion in the same day when we present this information and then come back at the regular meeting for a possible vote, so.
Well, and my preference would be to have a specific agenda language that details what the first intent is, whether it's $4 an hour. I think it's easy to go down. It's harder to go up. But I would rather have a figure there than just to say, discuss increasing parking, so that we can give our constituents some kind of measure of where we might be headed.
Well, I'm not understanding what's preventing us from right now recognizing we have this significant deficit. We have, I'm just going to bookend it. We have this significant deficit. We have a holistic parking fees, whatever we're going to do in April or May coming up. For this moment in time, I don't see what's so complicated about either $3.50, $3.75, or $4, whatever we have tolerance for. Because is it not true that as we go through the budget process, we'll be talking a lot about other pieces of revenue, and I don't know if we'll ever have any interest in a small contribution from the general fund. I don't know what the reaction would be to that, but there's so much more to go. But for this moment in time, I'm with Edward, as he was somewhat exasperated the last time he said, what about what did you say, 3.25, 3.50? What'd you say?
3.25, I think.
3.25 at that time. So it could be whatever we deem it to be, knowing what we know now.
Evan, this current draft budget does not, we're not utilizing any capital that we have saved, right? Any reserves, or is that correct?
For the general fund, that's correct.
And I think committing to an increase to 350 is
I think it's modest.
I think it's modest. I think it's
Less than 20%.
There has to be an increase. I mean, just look at the budget.
How do you feel about 375?
I mean, what's the fear about 375?
Versus, right, yeah, that's
Do
what
we
I'm
have a
asking.
fear?
Yeah.
I think there is some reality in that it'll have a negative perception out in the public. People are like, fine, I'm not
It'll be
driving.
negative if it's $3.01.
I'm not driving into Rehoboth. I'm going to go to Blue Coast or any of the other places that are popping up out on the highway. I mean,
Well, they're not going to go to Dewey to save any money.
that's why I feel comfortable with 350.
350.
But 375 will keep people on Route 1. I don't think so. That's just me. They're going to complain at 350. They're going to complain at 375. They're going to complain at $4. They'll complain at 325. right? I mean, nobody wants to see parking being raised.
Well, and as
But-
long as we're the cheapest guy in town, that brings a different feeling to it for me.
Yeah.
Believe looking at the report we had discussed today, I think it's been 8 years since we raised parking fees. And we took the big step in 18 to 19 and went from $2 to $3. And we've been at $3 since.
How many years? 8 years?
6 years, 2018.
We kept some areas at 250, but we raised those up to 3. That was 2 years ago, I think.
Again, looking at the report, meter change by year, 2019, $3 an hour, and then it was backed off $2, Rehoboth Avenue, 4th to Canal, both sides, and $1.50 for 30 minutes meters. But we went full-time to $3, 22, 23.
I'd be comfortable with 350 or 375. I don't think I'd feel comfortable with a 4 in the front, though.
I'll take 375.
And then I don't want to prolong this because I understand, but so Commissioner Sharp this morning made mention of, are we going to do this every year? Or do we do it once and say, that's it?
I think
So
we
get
have
the
to
paint out, get the paint out all at once, and then we don't have to deal with it each year.
And my response was I prefer
A stair step.
incremental increases. So
Of increasing it every year rather than,
every year, every 2 years.
And I would say it a little differently. We have to look at what our needs are every year and have our visitor contribution to the services of Rehoboth Beach as a potential revenue source.
I mean, here, our CIP for this year is $9.5 million. It goes to $13.5 million next year. So next year, we need
Even more.
even more.
Well,
So
and-
we need to start planning for that now.
Yes.
When we start talking about the parking and traffic study now and what we should do next year with parking rates, we need to plan for, we need to start planning before January of each year for a budget that's being implemented on 4/1. When we have huge increases happening year over year with the capital improvement and water and wastewater projects.
I would like to mention too that, as I mentioned sort of in the introduction, that the CIP is fluid as well. We have, I know the public works directors are still, they have some ongoing projects that may carry over into next fiscal year too. So some of the projects that we are not accounting for right now, such as the State Road Pump Station project and the LED project, we may have some carryover into next year that we need to also put into the budget. So we're hoping we can firm up some numbers for the next budget meeting, but those may be some additional expenses too.
I was in the minority a couple weeks ago, but we decided to defer on the permit fees as well for parking. If we're going to change the metered parking, might as well change the permit fees as well. Probably not a whole lot of increased revenue there, but at least it's being consistent.
So what do you want to do? Land the plane by February 16th? See, this is our problem. We're out of sync all the time on what we need to do and when we need to be doing it. And as Jay Legree used to call me, Captain Obvious, that this is, we talk about it, but we don't get in front of it. So the only thing I can offer is you have to stop at some point, April or May of this year, and consider 2025 and possibly 2026, and get on a disciplined method of looking at your future costs.
I agree. So should the, back to Ed's proposition, should the permits go up an equal percentage permit fee is to $3 as new permit fee, raised permit fee is to $4.
I would
or
say, Edward, what do you want to do?
$3.75.
I would, if we're having a 20% increase in parking fees, I'd make it consistent with the permit fees as well.
Can you come back with, at the next budget meeting, budget number 3, 9 o'clock on what, the 15th?
The 16th.
Can you come back with some numbers, what you might recommend the permit fees be raised to, so that they're the same ratio about? And we'll figure out how to put language in the budget meeting, because it needs to be specific in there. And then we'll figure out the language for the voting meeting to follow. And we're gonna need what, in draft ordinance also. So we'll have to check with Alex. Right, because we do it by ordinance. Are you all okay with all additionally addressing the permit fee?
Yes. Just looking at, again, the data that was shared with us this morning, transferable fee is $250, 20% increase basically is $300, right?
What's the non-transferable?
225. 225. That's for the season, if you buy it. The weekly is $90, but haven't we put weekend and weekday?
We made the same
No,
price.
Yes,
you all
just daily.
You all decided that you didn't want to do that. You all.
I wasn't here, so.
Listen, you all next to me.
Well, an extra $50 is what? 3 times 16
Couple of
hours of
cocktails.
Yeah, I
parking.
was gonna say 2 drinks at the Pines.
Yeah, but I mean, parking at a meter, it's 16 hours or something. We don't have to resolve it here, but
No, but we have to have a plan going forward. It's
well,
unfair to the
and that's
staff to
the
say-
plan right now, unless you all say something different. We're gonna.
I mean, I lost my temper earlier this morning about this. We brought this up I brought it up 2 months ago, was shot down.
Years ago.
So,
guess,
no, but Mayor, we decided, so I understand, I think doing the meters is pretty efficient. They can do the meters. I'm not so sure, how difficult is it gonna be for you to change all the permits?
Well, what I will say is we ordered the permits this year without any prices on them. So we were sort of planning for some potential
So you knew how we operate.
changes. But in terms of materials and things like that, I think it's similar to the meters in that if we can have a decision by the 16th, then we should be fine. At this point, it's just the print materials that we have to make sure is accurate.
So it's doable.
Okay, as long as you're comfortable with it. I just thought I heard before that we just didn't have time to implement it all, but if we do,
I think if you asked Evan the better question, would you rather deal with an administrative challenge, or would you rather have more revenue to balance the
Right.
budget? He probably wants more revenue to balance the budget.
We can blame all these increases on Evan.
No. What we are doing is a lot of catch-up in some regards. We're becoming appropriately staffed, properly resourced. We've
Yep.
done our homework as to what we value our staff at, what we should be paying them, what we need to be competitive. And, for the protection of a lifeguard that we now are paying $17.50 an hour as opposed to 2 or 3 years ago, we were paying $14 for. I would like, you think about this, but someone that is parking here for $3.75 an hour and has the assurances that their family is going to be safe on the beach, I won't say it's a no-brainer, but that is something that, it's a vacation, you're enjoying it, it is what we need to the services that Rehoboth has provided in the past and needs to continue to provide. the local residents, a lot of them say, you know, well, I don't come downtown anytime in the summer because there's no place to park. So I know we're going to hear that comments frequently. You can't raise the prices again and again, but on the other hand, they're talking out the same side of their mouth as I don't come downtown anyway because there's no place to park. So I think to be able to appropriately staff, properly resource us for our beach, for our police department, for the health and safety of the community, and providing that safe, clean, and friendly atmosphere that we do, these are costs that need to be met.
I think those are excellent rationalizations, justifications, absolutely.
Chris, did you get all that?
Well, I mean, it's not brain surgery here in that regards. And we have people that demand a certain level of service and expect a level of service, and we need to provide that, and in order to do that, it's not cheap.
And I would just like to offer what I think we're really doing here. If you step back from how much an hour of parking's going to be and how much a permit's going to be, if you step back for a minute, I think we could honestly be making some major advances with how we plan, when we plan, and what are our priorities and what are we solving. Because if we could get this discipline in an annual, I mean, we know every year when we do the budget, right?
Well, we've got on my agenda planner in May to start this parking issue.
Well, that's for one time. But if we can get on a schedule, maybe April is the best time. Maybe we'll come to that conclusion. I do not know. Maybe it's September. I do not know. But we don't have any regularity. We don't have something that forces us, like the budget does, to sit down and focus and make sure we understand what our needs are and how we're going to meet them. So I think there are multiple things happening here. All good, my opinion.
Well, Ev and I are going to work together to put the potential increase in parking permits and parking meter fees on the budget agenda, and then we'll do the same for the regular voting meeting. We'll figure something out.
And what number are you using?
Well, 375.
Okay.
I mean, you know, we could put potential increase up to $5, but that I think would alarm too many people. So I think there seemed to be consensus here of 375, so I'd like to put that on. We can always go down easier than we can go up. So if we're content with 375, then I think we ought to stick with it.
And to follow up on a comment from Commissioner Sharp about when's the appropriate time to do this, I think honestly you and the department heads are the better ones to provide us with that direction. Because it would seem to me that I'm one on data, so at the end of the season, whether it be October or November, we could get an update as to what parking revenue we received. Did that meet forecast? Where did we see an increase or something of that nature? And at that time, that certainly would give us plenty of time to take a forward look at the next or future seasons. That's just my observation. It may be totally wrong, but I think coming from you and the department heads is a better sense of direction than us trying to decide it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, certainly. And I think part of the difficulty is, you know, wanting to start the discussions early. And I know that in years past, we have made a conscious effort to try and have those discussions much earlier. But if you look at revenue at the end of the season, say around November, that gives you plenty of time to, you know, see what came in by September 15th, the end of the season. At that point, you have revenue numbers, and Bert can prepare a monthly budget report which shows, you know, current expenses. But I think largely what happens is we have these discussions during the budget because that's when we see what we need for the upcoming year. That's where we identify the real need for revenue. So I think we can absolutely present that information around November and make it available. I think some of the tough decisions, though, revolve around what gets presented as part of the budget. So whether it's starting the budget sooner, that could be an option, but I think largely maybe why the discussions wait a little bit is because we don't have those discussions about the budget, the upcoming expenses, and
And
some of
the
other
critical
challenges.
points are typically in the budget are salaries, healthcare, benefits. And with the compensation study that we have done, that's given us some guidelines to properly resource us, but also develop a system of promotion or step up for people, or I forget the proper term, but phases, so we know potentially what we're moving into. So we could, perhaps, I don't know for sure, but experience what potential revenue or potential salary and benefits needs would be earlier on, based on actual data that we're using.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think certainly with the addition of Gene, in this role now, and then also the arrangement we have with salary.com, that's much more achievable now to prepare information.
And
like
I
that.
would think that our capital improvement program could be part of the formula too. I mean, look how that's escalating every year.
Well, a lot of that escalation is because they keep pushing stuff into next year, which is...
But we know ahead of time it's going up and up and up.
And as I've said in past, we have a CIP, but in the past, we have not had what I'm referring as to an EIP, an employee plan, to look at those 5-year plans of what our salary expectations are going to be, to have, appropriate benefits so that we're competitive and we maintain people, not just being competitive to attract people, but to maintain our staff. So anyway, get off that soapbox.
Is just sort of a back of the napkin calculation. If you went from 350 to 375, raise about 635,000 extra.
675?
635.
635, just that extra quarter.
That extra quarter.
It's about, in total, 1.6 increased revenue, going from 3 to 375.
Well, what I did, Commissioners, I took the three main components: the credit card, the pay by phone, and then the coin, and just up those three, and that would give $635,000 more with a quarter increase.
That doesn't include the permits.
No, it doesn't. It just includes meters.
And is the direction for the permits a 20% increase across the board? If we're doing 20% on the hourly parking, using that justification to go with permits at 20%?
That's the only suggestion that's been offered thus far on the permits. Isn't that right, Commissioner Chernowski? I believe so. Yeah.
I'm just trying to confirm.
Yeah, I think
direction.
my only recommendation, again, without talking to the parking department, is to do it in increments of 5, only
Correct.
because then you get into dealing with singles and things like that,
And,
where it can
yeah.
get challenging.
Good. Tents out there with dollar bills is,
Right.
yeah, $5. Round up, please.
Right, sure.
Anything else from either end, either side of the table? Evan? Members of the public? Ed, Jay?
Before you go home, $10 million this year for CIP, 13.5 next year, 21.5 on 2027. And it goes down in 2028 down to 18,253, which is just twice as much as we have this year. It's terrible.
Well, a lot of that is a lot of that's the improvements to the wastewater plant. They're,
I didn't hear you, Bert. Tell me again.
a big chunk of that is the wastewater facility.
Yeah, it's phase 4 and also the streetscape.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are we going to keep putting that off forever?
No. No.
I'll tell you about the 600-pound gorilla after the meeting.
Commissioners, anything else?
Next, just a review, next meeting at departments, what's up next?
Oh.
That's all right.
I think it's, off the top of my head, building and licensing, parks and recreation, information technology. Those are the three I can remember off the top of my head.
We'll hold you to it.
Admin. Yeah, right.
That should go a little quicker, hopefully, because we're not having the 4 agencies back seeking contributions. All righty, anything else? If not, thank you. We'll call this meeting adjourned at 5:37 PM. Thank you very much.
Thank y'all.
Very nice job, Evan.